Hello. I am speaking with Caroline Farrow today. She is a Catholic commentator from the United Kingdom. She's a mother of two, and she has been relentlessly harassed by transgender activists, extremists. I don't know how you would want to refer to them, for quite a while. One in particular has managed to use the British legal framework to a frightening degree of success over months, probably actually years at this point. I think it's been going on since like 2018. Is it, I saw a court document.
Yeah, 2019.
Okay, so it's been going on for a long time. Uh, Carolyn.
Hi, I'm really nervous, and I apologize to everyone for my British accent. Yeah, no, I don't really know how to start, really. I mean, I suppose it starts from 2019. And the reason that I'm talking to Josh is because Kiwifarms has played an integral role in this story. When I first came across the Kiwifarms, I was like, "What on earth is that?" Um, but I've grown, or it's become, you can't tell my story without actually mentioning Kiwifarms, and I know that a lot of people are going to say, Caroline, why are you talking to Joshua Moon? He's this terrible reprobate. Why are you posting on the Kiwifarms, which will hopefully become clear? But actually, I found that amidst all this madness, the Kiwifarms community have been amongst the most supportive and have seen exactly what has happened as it's been happening, and they've documented it as the Kiwifarms do in real time. Um, and yeah, they've just been super supportive. They've documented it in real time, and actually, they've been the only place on the internet where this whole story and saga has been able to be discussed in any real detail, because anytime anyone's tried to talk about it anywhere else, on any other forum, whether that's Twitter, which has now, under Musk or Zitter, whatever it's called, under Elon Musk's ownership, has now become a much freer place. But even so, you post on Twitter and, as my story illustrates, you can still be arrested. But people have wanted to talk about what's been happening. And the Kiwifarms has really been the only place on the internet that's been able to allow for a free discussion, because every other place has been shut down with legal threats, and actually pretty baseless legal threats. But it's much easier if you're a website hoster to just take down the threads, to sort of acquiesce to legal threats, rather than spend thousands of pounds defending it. So and also, Josh, I was going to say, I know that and I know that I have a rather dedicated band of trolls or alogs or whatever you want to call them. I mean, from your end how many people keep setting up fake accounts on the Kiwifarms about me. Absolutely obsessively. So I know one of the criticisms that I'm going to get is, why are you talking to Joshua Moon? He's a pedophile. He's a sadistic pedophile, and because you're talking to him, I'm going to make sure that you lose your job and your husband loses his job, because you're really into all these terrible things that are posted on the Kiwifarms. So I was just actually going to say to you, Josh, could you debunk why everybody accuses you of being a sadistic paedophile? I mean, clearly,
Well,
clearly, if
we
you were,
share
you weren't
a
going to admit
common
it. But
friend. There's someone who I thought had disappeared, maybe out of shame, maybe out of remorse. He has early onset dementia in his family. I assumed that maybe his brain had finally slipped away and he was just peacefully enjoying his time in retirement homes. But no, Samuel Collingwood Smith, who goes by Matthew Hopkins online, who styled himself, for any British listeners, styled himself after a famous witch finder back in the day, who invented what's called the duck test, which was a system where they would test if somebody was a witch by dunking them into water. If they floated, they were a witch and they would be burned at the stake. If they drowned, they were innocent. Sam siles himself after that because that's his mentality. He accuses literally everybody that he doesn't like is a pedophile. He's been doing this for like 20 years now, I want to say, and he's just never stopped. He's just found different targets. So, this guy has managed to. He's a muckraker, and he manages to find people to believe him, which is unfortunate because if people just ignored his deranged lunatic ramblings, he would have no power to threaten people, but he does. So yeah, when you, just to clarify, when you say that you've been arrested, you've been literally arrested by the British police because a transgender person alleged that you were using the Kiwifarms to talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, it actually goes back to 2019. And I think it's such a long, convoluted saga. And my neurodiverse superpower is I've got a photographic memory, so I can remember everything in pretty clear detail. So it's probably best if I kind of start chronologically. But yeah, the Kiwifarms was why I was arrested for the first time in October 2022 and again in April 2023. And the first time Kiwifarms really featured was when the transgender activist behind all of this, Stephanie Hayden, started accusing me of posting on the Kiwifarms in April 2019. And he made a big statement on Twitter that he had reported me to Surrey Police because I was posting on his thread on the Kiwifarms. And he had convinced himself that I was this poster called TMYNS, which I later learned stood for the man you never saw. And what had happened was Stephanie Hayden had made a name for himself by being really, really aggressive with aggressive legal tactics. So he had gone around, he'd sued Graham Linehan and got the police round to Graham Linehan's house. He had sued and threatened another transgender activist, funnily enough. He'd just gone around making all these sort of grandiose legal threats against people. And I hadn't really had an awful lot to do with him. Certainly I hadn't mentioned him. Our paths hadn't crossed. I'd heard of him. And he I mean, where'd you go with this, Josh? It's just so convoluted. He hung around with this other guy called Dr. Adrian Harrop, who again was another really notorious transgender activist. And I had nothing to do with either of these people until I think it was the end of December 2018, and I'd posted something on Twitter about how gender ideology is similar to the techniques used by gender ideologues in schools. It's very similar to the brainwashing techniques of the Nazis or of the communists. And Adrian Harrop was so incensed by this. He got hold of this tweet and he copied in like Vatican diplomats across, like, and it was really weird who he copied in. He copied in like the US Vatican, the embassy, the US embassy to the Vatican, and all every single high profile sort of Catholic he could think of to try and call me out. And what he didn't realise, and he tagged in the Pope as well, which I thought was hilarious. You know, like Pope Francis is going to be reading his English Twitter feed and, you know, going to issue an online excommunication. And what he didn't realise was the thing that he was calling me out for was an indirect quote of the Pope himself, saying, actually, the way we are indoctrinating children in schools is we're using children as ideological guinea pigs, you know, teaching them that they can choose whether or not they can be boys or girls, and we're encouraging them to snitch on their parents. And this is something that went on in Nazi Germany.
So just to recap, the instigating incident, you have three people in this story at this point. Well, not at this point because Sam's not in this yet, but I brought him up. You have Adrian Harrop.
Adrian Harrop.
I don't know how to pronounce these names. I apologize. I always thought
That's
that
okay.
you mentioned Graham. I always assumed that his name was Gran Lineham, but that's
No,
apparently not it.
it's Linehan. Graham Linehan.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So
Irish
Adrian Hollop.
pronunciation.
Who's the second? Who's the
So Graham Linehan, you've got who's on our side, who's one of sort of the goodies in inverted commas.
Mhm.
You've got Dr. Adrian Harrop, who is a transgender. He's actually a male, and he's a gay male doctor in with all the Rainbow Brigade. He's an advocate. I don't really know how else to describe him.
What is his doctorate in? He's a doctor.
Well, he's an actual medical doctor. So
in like surgery?
Yeah.
Is this the butcher that I've heard about? Is that a different person?
No, but he's very good friends with. So he was very closely aligned with Dr. What was her name? Dr. Helen Weberly, who ran this very shonky, ran a sort of legal version of what Keffels did, really. So
that's the butcher, right? There's one of these people that are known as a butcher. And I'm sorry if I'm just
no. To be fair, Adrian Harrop's not, but he doesn't do surgery.
Okay.
He just prescribes the hormones.
Oh, okay. So they do like intake and try to say like, oh, here's your medication for your gender issues, or do they not work in gender?
Yeah, no. So he does. Okay. So he made sort of gender medicine a bit of a speciality, passion of his, and he wound up with a thread. But he used to be really, really good friends. I think he still is. But he made a great show of being really good friends with Stephanie Hayden, and Harrop was a menace. If you were to Google him, you'd find that he wound up being struck off the medical register for a month.
Oh, he's lost his license. Oh, just for a month.
Only for a month, because of the way he was singling out women and bullying them online. So there was one woman, he said, I need you to delete all your you need to delete all your social media accounts, otherwise I'm going to dox you. I'm going to publish all your details, and you need to learn. And she was getting death threats, and he was saying, you need to learn a very challenging lesson. I hope you've learned your lesson from these death threats. And he came out with some really dodgy things about how child marriage in Africa, child sex in Africa, that was just a cultural norm and we should all accept it. We're all being terribly racist if we didn't accept little girls being married to adult men. I mean, he was just super, super creepy. And so this pair, Dr. Harrop, and also...
Not to interrupt, but like with Stephanie Hayden, does he have any interesting history, just in brief? Like what's his background? Is he like a doctor, mechanic, lawyer?
I have to be very careful. Okay, so he styles himself the flying lawyer. He has a law degree, but he cannot practice law.
So he's like Sam. Okay, just people outside the UK will not understand this, but in the UK, when you get a law degree, you're not able to just pass a test and join the bar like you do in the US. The solicitor firms in the UK effectively they have to apprentice in their solicitors. So the solicitor firms in the UK effectively get to decide who their own competition will be. And as a result, getting in one of these apprenticeships is extremely hard to do. And there are a lot of people, including Sam Vordrak, who have a master's degree in law like he does, but cannot become official solicitors because their reputations are so bad. There is zero chance, especially at like a late age, they will ever be able to apprentice into one of these solicitor firms. So what they do instead is they become what's called a McKinsey friend, where in the UK, unlike in the US, non-lawyers are able to give legal advice and help with filings. So a lot of these not solicitors who have some legal knowledge, but you don't even really have to have a degree to do this, will become McKinsey friends, which is just a very polite way, and a lot of what I've seen, for people to help people become pro se legal menaces in the court system of the UK.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, kind of. So in the UK as well, you've got two different routes you can go in. Once you get your law degree, you can either be a solicitor, which does all the kind of admin and advises clients. And solicitors tend to do stuff like wills and contracts, but they generally don't advocate in court. So a barrister is the person who advocates in court. So you've got, and occasionally you can have a barrister. Normally you need a solicitor to instruct a barrister, but occasionally you can have a barrister who's direct access. Anyway, sorry, long story. But to do either of these routes, you have to do various exams after your law degree, and you have to, as you say, become apprenticed. So you get a training contract, so you get a solicitor's training contract, or if you're going the barrister route, you have to do something called pupillage. So you have to pass all your bar exams, do pupillage, and then you have to be accepted, finish your training contract with the bar. So you've got these slightly two different routes, but as you say, in order passing your degree and then doing the exams isn't enough. You need a training contract or a pupillage. I don't really want to comment on Samuel Collingwood Smith because I genuinely know nothing about him, aside from the fact that he sent me a couple of very nasty unsolicited emails. So I'm which have been really horrible actually, and yeah, they've been really horrible, and they've really taken me aback. And that he's really aggressive. He comes in, he'll send you an aggressive email, and he'll demand you answer it and give you 20 minutes to answer it. And if you haven't answered it straight away, he'll then publish a really unpleasant blog article about you.
Yeah. The way that, he comes in, he always does this. He sends an email to basically every email he can find. He'll go out of his way to find personal emails that aren't like your official points of contact. And he'll put in like a subject like urgent accusations about you being a pedophile and literally murdering little babies. And it's like, and then he'll have like this big paragraph. It's like, I have found evidence that you stomp on little babies. I intend to publish an article about this. You have 6 hours to reply, or I will note that you're non-response. You were not responsive to my inquiries. It's like, that's what he does. And it's entirely like a fearmonger, because in the gaps between these sentences, there's a subtext instruction like cease your contact with this person. Like his accusations will hinge around, you're in contact with this person. Do you stomp on little babies like he does? If so, let me know. And there's like a subtext that if you continue to associate with somebody or be a part of an organization or offer some kind of help, that's what's prompting the article.
So yeah, he when he sent me an email, he gave me a couple of hours, and I remember I was actually at a medical appointment, and he copied in my solicitors as well, and saying, I demand, and he was saying things like, he asked me if I got sexual gratification from looking at child torture porn, which I kind of, it was a really horrible accusation, because he said, because you post on the Kiwifarms, I can only assume that do you derive sexual gratification from child torture porn? And then I just ignored it. And then he went on to publish a blog, and he took some of it out because I think he realized that it was defamatory. And he said that he was really, really disturbed, and therefore he was going to make it his personal business to make sure that my husband wasn't able to act as a priest anymore. My husband's in ministry, and that he was going to sort of tell safeguarding, and you begin to sort of get quite panicked and worried, thinking, it's like, I've decided that Robin Farrow is not suitable to be in ministry, and I'm going to see to it that he doesn't. And, no doubt that he went to safeguarding, but actually we have pretty robust safeguarding procedures in the UK. And, somebody's wife posting on a forum doesn't necessarily, do you know what I mean? Look at all the horrible porn and stuff that's on Twitter. Look, on every single, it makes me laugh, because on Twitter there's the most disgusting stuff that you see, and you get tagged into some of these bots and things. So he was just like, well, her husband must know that she's posting on the Farms. Her husband must know she's friends with Joshua Moon. Her husband must know that she's consorting with a paedophile. Therefore, I've decided, and I'm going to make it my business that everybody knows that he's unfit for ministry, because he obviously approves of her consorting with paedophiles. And for a priest, that's quite a scary and damaging accusation, and potentially libelous as well. Now I've repeated the libel. I can't sue him for libel, and life's too short. But I think, fortunately, because we have very good safeguarding procedures, people can't just throw about mad accusations. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like, I saw Goody. It's like the Crucible, isn't it? I saw Goody Farrow talking to this person, and this must mean
really,
this.
with private companies, maybe with the church it's different, but with private companies, he goes after the CEOs and the coworkers, and will say, like, I'm gonna call your boss a pedophile, I'm gonna call his wife a pedophile, I'm gonna go after her company too, so on and so forth. He never, he's just obsessed. He's one of the most sadistic, obsessed people I've ever seen, and it is genuinely shocking to me that in a country where you are literally put in handcuffs because you are alleged to post on a forum. And this guy, he lives in Hertfordshire. He's been there in council flats for years and years, and nobody cares. The government just allows him to do this, and they don't consider what he does, which is effectively extortion and blackmail and a form of domestic terrorism. They just let him sit there and talk. And but he has some connectivity to Adrian and Stephanie, because he's acted as McKinsey friend to them, right?
No, he hasn't. And so that's why I want to be really careful. So you've given your opinion. My opinion is just that, he sent me a couple of very unpleasant, threatening emails because I had posted on the Kiwifarms. So I'm not condoning your opinion of him, because I know obviously this will get back to him, and he'll send me a threatening email, or he'll try and issue a lawsuit. So my honest opinion is just that he sent me some unpleasant emails, which were quite frightening, and I didn't like very much, and I would rather stay away from him, because I just can't be doing with yet another lawsuit. And also, Josh, I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to an audience that probably already has quite, knows this individual quite well, and has formed their own opinion. So I don't believe I'm doing any. I'm covering myself legally here. I don't believe I'm doing any serious harm to his reputation. I'm just saying he sent me some scary emails and some scary threatening emails, and yeah, that took me aback, and kind of, I just thought, I've never done anything to you, so I don't understand why you're sending this to me. But it was because you had done a stream after I was arrested, and you had said, Samuel Collingwood Smith has been acting as a McKenzie friend to Stephanie Hayden. Actually, no, he hasn't at all. And if you'd asked me, I would have said, no, Samuel Collingwood Smith has never been a McKenzie friend to Stephanie Hayden. But because you said that on your stream, Sam then thought, he must have got that from Caroline Farrow. So that was the hook he used to send his email, saying, Joshua Moon has accused me of being a McKenzie friend to Stephanie Hayden, and he could only have got this information from Caroline Farrow. Well, actually, had you been talking to me, then I would have said no. So Samuel Collingwood Smith has had, to be fair, nothing to do with Stephanie Hayden, but obviously decided to wade in when you mentioned him after your stream last year. But that said, there's been a kind of weird thing going on, in that you talked about in Mad on the Internet recently about the Jimmy Savile phenomenon. So Jimmy Savile was this famous BBC entertainer who everybody knew was a bad one. Everybody knew. My mum used to say, he'd come on the television, and my mum would say, "Oh, that man's so creepy. Oh, he's not right, is he?" And he was a national treasure, supposedly, Jimmy Savile. And after he died, it came out that he was a prolific paedophile and that he had abused all numbers of young girls and teenagers, and he'd done it at the BBC and supposedly in various hospitals. And this had all been going on in plain sight, and the BBC had known about it and had covered it up, and everybody knew. So there's kind of like this collective guilt going on in the UK. But at the same time as the Savile thing came out, there was another group of people. There was this other guy called Carl Beach, and he was a fantasist. He was a fantasist grifter. He should have had a lolcow thread.
What is a fantasist? I've never heard that term.
A fantasist.
Oh, infants, like an infant sadist?
No, sorry. No, that's my British accent. So no, he was a fantasist. And
you can't use the word in the definition. I need an explanation.
You know what a fantasist is? Somebody who what?
You define it with other words. Fanaticist? Like someone fanatical about something.
No, he was a fantasist, a fabulist. He was
Is it like an Alex Jones or a David Icke, like that?
No, David Icke. It's not David Icke. David Icke.
Whatever.
Goodness me. Every day's a school day. No, so Carl Beach was this fantasist. Why?
You have to explain what that means.
Oh, for goodness sake. Fantasist. Let's look it up. A person who imagines or dreams about something desired.
Okay.
Or, and what this guy, Carl Beach, did was there was a massive, in the wake of Savile, there was a massive sort of pedo panic. And lots of people alleging that there are paedophile rings right up to the heart of Westminster and the royal family. And, everybody, it was almost like there's a paedophile under the bed. Now, the idea of a pedo panic is very advantageous to those who really are paedophiles, because they like to say, oh, there's a pedo panic. And as ever, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know whether there's a big paedophile ring, or I don't know. I wouldn't like to get involved in that whole controversy, because genuinely I have not enough information and an opinion. But what I will say is, from my perspective of being a Catholic, people often say that the Catholic Church was a systematic paedophile ring. No, it wasn't. Basically, it was a bunch of, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a bunch of paedophile priests who weren't, the internet didn't exist. They weren't all acting together. It wasn't an organized thing. Basically, you'd get some pedo priest abuse children, and it was much easier for the bishop to cover it up and move them on to a different diocese than to face the problem head on. It wasn't like there was an organized, gang of priests deliberately going around saying, all right, you take this diocese, I take that diocese, and someone organizing it. It was more sort of opportunism and a hierarchy that didn't deal with it properly. So as a result of sort of the sex abuse scandals in the Catholic Church and in the BBC and across society, people have become very, very aware and very, very sensitive. And in amongst all of this character called Carl Beach popped up. And Carl Beach made a series of allegations saying that he had been raped by all these VIPs, all these politicians, all these pop stars. And he sparked an entire police investigation called Operation Midland. And there was an actual witch hunt going on. So all these people that Carl Beach accused were all very publicly arrested. One of them, a famous pop singer, Cliff Richard, his arrest and his house being searched was filmed live by the BBC. And there was no presumption of innocence for these people. And it turned out that this guy, Carl Beach, had made the whole thing up. And it turned out he was a paedophile himself.
Wow.
Who was just, yeah. And if you Google him, you'll find that or look in DuckDuckGo, whatever, he got 18 years in prison. There was one MP called Harvey Proctor who was falsely arrested and accused, and it was really, really nasty. One guy made all these false allegations, and it resulted in, this entire sort of industry almost of people saying, oh gosh, there's a paedophile ring, there's this happening, there's that happening, there's the other happening. And as a backlash to that, you got the one side of people saying pedo panic, oh, everybody, there's this paedophile ring going on. And then you got another group of people saying, oh, it's all invented allegations, it's all, this has all been overblown, this has all been made up. And there was sort of these two rival gangs sort of trolling each other on social media. And I think that Samuel Collingwood Smith was very much involved in the gang that was, I'm not saying he trolled on Twitter, because as far as I'm aware, he's never had a Twitter account, but he was very supportive of the group of people who were very skeptical about the idea of a pedo panic, which is why I understand he then began to advocate for an MP or an ex-MP called John Hemming, who had been caught up and falsely accused of some of these allegations. So to be fair, to be scrupulously fair to Sam Collingwood Smith, who, I don't know beyond him sending me a couple of horrible emails, I think initially he was kind of sort of well-intentioned, but it's all kind of spun off the rails, and it's all become like really, really personal. And I just sort of wanted to stay away from all of that. But he, as I say, he only really got into the Stephanie Hayden thing after you mentioned him on the stream. But I think he was aware of what was going on anyway, because one of these trolls, so Stephanie Hayden there was a troll.
Let's clarify, because I think you jumped in quickly to say that I was wrong, but he did join the lawsuit, like a lawsuit. I can't remember who it was or what the context is, but he is participatory in one of these, is he not? If he wasn't in the beginning, he is now.
He's certainly not been involved in any of the lawsuits against me. Okay. He might well issue one tomorrow, but although I'm really trying not to be defamatory or not, I'm just giving my perspective and my opinion as I see it. He wasn't involved in any of the Hayden or the Harrop business. I think he did threaten. No, he didn't. There was somebody who threatened a lawsuit against one of Louise Moody, right? So she's another person that Hayden has tried to sue, and I think Sam was approached for help with somebody who wanted to sue Louise Moody.
Okay.
But I don't, to be fair, I don't think, and I think Sam was a bit like, I'm not really sure I want to get involved in all of this because it was just such a mess. So he's not, to the best of my knowledge, been legally involved. And I'm just being really careful, Josh, because I really can't be doing with yet another another lawsuit, because so I'm trying to be balanced, because this isn't really about Samuel Collingwood Smith, apart from the fact that he seemed to chime in and join Hayden. And I remember he wrote another blog post and he said, is Caroline Farrow Erasmus of Rotterdam, who was a poster on the site? And he'd fed Erasmus of Rotterdam's posts through some machine that's able to analyze text and paraphrases and things. And he'd concluded that he was sort of, I don't know, 60% sure it was me. Therefore, is Caroline Farrow Erasmus of Rotterdam?
Unless you have like a proper language model, you're not just using some free online tool. That's not going to be, evidentiary of anything besides what you wanted to say.
Yeah, so we've kind of digressed.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you're afraid to talk about him because I don't know. I'd be happy to talk about him, but if you want to not, I can
Sure. Well,
respect that.
to be honest, as I say, he sent me two horrible emails, and they were upsetting. And
I mean, he wrote articles about you and your husband too, did he not?
yeah, he did. He wrote a couple of
Yeah.
blogs about me, which they did cause me alarm and distress, and I did think that they were malicious. But what I can't spend all my life reporting everybody to the police. And in fact, I did actually forward them to the police because there was this completely unsolicited email accusing me of really heinous things. And I've got 5 children. I'm
Five. I thought
involved.
it was two.
No, I've got 5. No, I've got 5 children. Uh, I'm involved, in the church. Play the organ in church and things. So actually, trying to claim that I have some sort of sexual interest in children was really, really upsetting, and really
I
got to
think to
me.
most people it is.
And I thought, how can you not think that that's malicious? How can you not have a bit of perspective?
I mean,
So
the thing is that I mean, I really want to switch back to Hayden and stuff now, but I'll just say like you gave him the benefit of the doubt, so he has good intentions, but he swept up on it. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's. It's not an accident. He knows exactly what he's doing. Just to be clear.
And and if I hope he doesn't issue a lawsuit, because I'm literally this is honest opinion. This is honest opinion based on experience. That yeah, it's I haven't said anything defamatory. So and if he issues a lawsuit, then I'll just have to deal with it. But I'd really rather not have the hassle.
Okay. So the initial incident with Hayden was you wrote an article about, just to recap, so we can go back to the starting position. The original issue with Hayden was that you had written an article comparing gender ideology to other forms of historical indoctrination. You quoted the Pope. Hayden went off on a huge tangent to try and get you and I guess also your husband removed from service.
Well. So what happened was I wrote this tweet criticizing gender ideology. Adrian Harrop jumped on it, and I laughed at him. And then it kind of all went and said, I'm going to report it. I'm going to report it to the Pope and to everybody, and we just laughed. And it all then went quiet. 2018. Then round about February 2019, Kate Scottow got arrested. So Kate Scottow is another mother. She's a mother of 2. She had called Hayden a pig in a wig.
Mm-hmm.
And she
was
got
on
arrested.
Twitter or?
Yeah, on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So she'd called Hayden a pig in a wig and some other names. And she had apparently agreed not to talk about Hayden because he'd already threatened her. And so under an assumed name, she called him a pig in a wig. He discovered it was her, and he called up Hertfordshire Police Force, and a big police van comes and arrests Kate in front of her. She was literally had a baby in arms. She was breastfeeding her baby. And and she's got a daughter who's autistic as well. And she gets arrested by all these police in front of her family. It's a Saturday afternoon, put in a cell and questioned. And her treatment was so bad. I mean, she was on her period, as she said, and they're supposed to give you feminine hygiene products, and they didn't. So they sort of left her there to free bleed in a cell. And when she was questioned, she couldn't quite believe how absurd it was that this was happening. And so she didn't have a solicitor with her because she just thought she could explain it all away. She was also as well doing her master's degree. I think it was in criminal psychology, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she They took her laptop with all her notes and everything on, so she couldn't complete her degree. And this caused a massive media storm. So I remember she put her story on Mumsnet. And I remember being so shocked, and I didn't know Kate at all. I screenshot it and put it on my Twitter feed and said, I can't believe this has happened. And it went kind of really viral. And then a few days later, the Daily Mail picked it up, and it went super viral. And even Donald Trump's son, Donald Jr., reposts it. So it really goes viral. And then we learned that, it was Stephanie Hayden that was behind it. The Daily Mail published an article, and Hayden then sues the Daily Mail because it's harassment and defamation, that how they'd published the article, naming him. And he'd already as well he tried to sue Mumsnet. So there was a big thread on Hayden on Mumsnet. And on this thread, somebody came onto this thread and said, and posted a transcript of a court case. And this court case showed, you asked about Hayden's background, it showed Hayden's background, namely that he had got convictions for fraud, assault. He'd hit a man about the head with a golf club in a row about a parking space, and indecent assault on a male. And this was published on this thread on Mumsnet in 2018. So there was this big online noise about Hayden because he'd gone around getting women arrested. Various illegal publication had put that he'd hit a man around the head with a golf club. Graham Linehan had allegedly doxed him and said what his dead name was. So there was all, and now he's going around getting women arrested. So there was a lot of online noise about, this really annoying transgender male who's going around suing Mumsnet, getting the police on Graham Linehan. Now he's got a woman arrested. And people at Mumsnet began digging, and they discovered that basically Hayden had never really had a job. He I think he'd originally got a degree in politics, and he seems to have been, I don't know, sort of drifting really, doing all these different court cases by himself, because at that point he didn't have a law degree, and he seemed to go around doing all kinds of, again, I don't want to be defamatory, but from what we've heard, interesting activities, setting up company after company, and then dissolving them. So whenever he'd set up a company, he'd never file any accounts, and then he'd dissolve it, and then he'd set up another fat company, never file any accounts, dissolve it. And it was believed he was doing this to get credit lines. And he seemed to be dabbling a lot in tenancy law. And then round about 2009, 2010, no, I think it's later than that, sorry, probably about 2013, 2014, he began doing his law degree as a mature student. And so people began digging up his history, because they thought, who is this person who's going around causing so much damage to people and legally threatening them? So a thread on Mumsnet was began. And then his thread on Kiwifarms began, I think, in February 2019.
Okay.
Now,
so wait, hold up. Just real quick to try and sort out stuff, because a lot of information, and it's kind of not anachronistic. It's not like in order. So this was who was the woman who was I made a comment about him. What was the original context of the original tweet? This woman said that he looked like a pig in a wig. What was the context of that?
I think she was just being rude to him. I think she was just calling him a pig in a wig.
It was just a conversation on Twitter. And that's what she said. Okay.
Yeah.
And he, what was her name?
Kate Scottow.
Okay. So she was then sometime after, like the same week, I guess, arrested, and her life was disrupted as a result of, and she was treated very poorly by the police shortly after that. And then it went viral. It became a talking point in the US. And this sounds very allegorical to Yaniv. Are you familiar with Yaniv in Canada?
Yeah.
Very similar to that. Yaniv had a lot of pull too, and was able to get things yanked off Twitter constantly. It was crazy how much connection he had. But so then after this becomes a news story. I imagine on both the Kiwifarms and on Mumsnet at the same time, there was sort of like a discussion about this person and the problems he was causing, right? And that's when they, I, or maybe I'm wrong, and it was on Mumsnet first in the forum.
Yeah, no. So I think it started on Mumsnet in about October 2018. The reason I know this is because I've had to defend myself against a misuse of private information claim, and my defense was, well, actually, the information was already out there. So the thread started in October 2018, and then in February 2019, the Kiwifarms thread started.
Okay. And it was the Mumsnet thread that found about his multiple companies and his adventures as an adult student in university. And yeah. When was, I don't mean to bring this up out of context, but I remember that there was a newspaper clipping about him being charged for some crime. Can you talk about that?
Which one? There have been loads of newspaper clippings.
Well, I know what I want to say, but I don't want to say it and be wrong.
No, just say it and I'll tell you.
I think he ran some kind of internet website about having sex with or taking photos of teenage boys, and that was discovered. He got a charge for that.
No, it was discovered. I think it was someone on the Kiwifarms initially discovered it. He ran a website. It's quite sweet, really. But he ran a website when he was about, oh gosh, I think he would have been about 26 or something, 1999, about teenage boys that he found really sexy. So one of them was the guy who played Billy Kennedy in Neighbours. He went on to star in House, actually. Jesse Spencer, is it? And it was, ooh, I mean, it was like something a teenage girl had written. It was like, ooh, sexy Billy. Oh, I'm so jealous of all the girls that will get to kiss my sexy boy and see his sexy bum. Oh, he's my dreamboat. And there were pictures of him in his school uniform and, bare-chested. And he was clearly pubescent. And it was just very funny, like, ooh, he's heaven. It was the sort of thing that, well, in fact, I've got teenage daughters and they're too mature to say something like that. I mean, it was really, it was funny, but he didn't get charged for it. It was, it was just something he set up, but it's transpired. And again, I'm not revealing private information because this was published by Redux magazine recently, and it got over 3 million views on Twitter. There were 4 threads set up on Mumsnet, subsequently removed, and also published on the Kiwifarms and all over Twitter. So he's trended twice on Twitter that he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old boy. So
what year?
On one occasion,
I remember this was an old newspaper.
Yeah, was that? I think it was in 1997. Wow. So he was 24 and the boy was 14, and the newspaper said that on one occasion he took the boy to a bed. He met him on a chat line, took the boy to a bed and breakfast establishment. And then on another occasion, he took the boy to his parents' house when his parents were away. And he was charged and got 5 years on the sex offender register for that. Interestingly, as this has trickled out, so Mumsnet first mentioned that there was indecent assault on a male. So there was a lot of speculation for years, what was this about? And in a lot of his pleadings, Hayden has tried to say that the boy was under the then age of homosexual consent, because the age of homosexual consent in the UK used to be 21. Then they lowered it to 18, and then they lowered it to 16 to make it on a par with heterosexual consent. So for years and years, Hayden has said, oh, this I was in a consensual relationship with someone who was under the then age of homosexual consent. But actually, that's really misleading, because they were under it sort of implies that it would be legal now, but it still wouldn't. And in fact, arguably now, he might even have got a stiffer sentence because in the light of all those paedophile and grooming scandals we've had, these sorts of crimes get tougher sentencing. And there's a grooming. We understand grooming far better, I think, than we did in 1996.
Yeah, I think in the 90s, it was the common theory, even in law, was just that, homosexuals start being sexually active very young. So that's just like, the police would turn like a blind eye, like kind of like with Dahmer, like Jeffrey Dahmer. He was with very young men, and the police just sort of, oh, that's like a gay thing, I don't want to deal with this, and they ignored it. Whereas now, I think police take relationships like that pretty seriously.
Yeah, and I think so that and it just shows actually, sorry, how it was categorized. So then it was indecent assault on a male. Now, if you were to do that, it would be called sexual assault of a child. Mm-hmm. And we don't know very much about it because we've only got this contemporary clipping, although I think Redux got the certificates of conviction from the court. Is it Redux or Redux? You know the publication I mean.
I would say Redux.
Redux. Fair enough. So the judge, Hayden has always said, oh, it was a consensual relationship. But the fact that he's referring to it as a relationship, a 24-year-old and a 14-year-old don't have a relationship. Yeah. That's a grooming. That's an abusive situation, and that he thought that the boy was much older. Well, really, 14? I mean, yeah, I know all 14-year-olds are different, but most boys develop later than girls, and most 14-year-old boys.
Yeah, you don't have to explain that it's bad for a man to have sex with a 14-year-old boy. I think most people by default are on your side with that thing.
No, I know. But so for years, this rumor has been doing the rounds, and it's been published on Kiwifarms for several years because anytime anyone so much as hinted and asked the question, has he got this conviction, then he would immediately go and sue them. And he'd get injunctions out. So with two people later on.
How does he win injunctions against people when the information is factually correct? Is that not a thing in the UK, that true things cannot be defamatory?
Well, I think it needs to be thrashed out in court. So he uses the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. And the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act is to do with if you have committed a crime and you've served it and it's a spent conviction, should you have to disclose it to your employers? And after a certain amount of time, the argument is, no, you shouldn't. It's a spent conviction. So you get a drunk driving conviction. Should you, when you're in your early 20s, should you have to admit that to your employer when you're 35?
So for civil offenses, or is like the argument that they are making this public again and that impacts his employability? Is that his legal?
Well, this is it. So the law is so there's a law on rehabilitation of offenders, which basically means that once you've served your time and a certain period of time has elapsed, you should be treated as rehabilitated. But that doesn't necessarily apply in this instance, because if somebody has been convicted of something in a public court and it's on public record, then it's always public. And the argument with someone like Hayden is that they are trying to build themselves to
interrupt real quick. I think that in the UK, not every conviction is public, whereas it's the opposite in the US. Everything is public all the time, with very few exceptions. I think like with children, they might close some cases out, but by default, everything is public in the US. And I guess that's different in the UK, where some cases are not public.
No, I think most cases are public, and it's the same. If it involves a child, then there might be a reporting restriction around the child's identity. So you might have heard there was a famous pair of child killers who killed this little boy, Jamie Bolger.
Yes.
And they got lifelong anonymity orders. So it's the discretion of the court. But generally speaking, we have a similar thing. We have a principle of transparent and open justice. So you commit a crime and it's reported on in a local newspaper or online, you might not have to disclose it to your employer, but it's still publicly available and searchable.
Okay.
But where we enter a slightly legal grey area is whether or not publishing somebody's offence is defamation. Now, you can argue, well, it's not because it's true, but it all depends on why you do it. Are you doing it to be malicious? Are you trying to be malicious or spiteful, or there is, it's a finely weighted legal test, because obviously you publish somebody's convictions and it invades on their privacy. So Hayden can argue, look, if everybody knows about this conviction, this could make me really unsafe. I could get gangs of paedophile hunters come to my house, which has happened in the UK, to be fair. In fact, very famously in the 90s, someone who was a paediatrician found themselves with a vigilante mob outside their house because these dullards had confused a paedophile with paediatrician. And so there is always the
That's a very British story. I'm just going to say that.
I know. there's always the danger of vigilantism. So Hayden would go to court and argue for an injunction by claiming that by muddying the waters, essentially, by saying, well, this person was under the then age of homosexual consent, so not necessarily being clear about the fact it was a 14-year-old, claim that it was a consensual relationship, claim that he's lived a completely blemish-free life ever since, and this is really horrible, and this will impact upon his privacy, and it will impact upon the privacy of the victim, who's entitled to lifelong anonymity, because if this becomes known, then Hayden will have to come out and explain what happened and clear his name. And so the judges have sort of taken this at face value and issued sort of temporary injunctions saying, okay, you are now banned from referencing this conviction. And it's never, in one case, the case of Bronwyn Dickinson.
I'm sorry, that's obscene, because in the US there is, like, you cannot sue somebody for the truth. You can sue somebody for harassment in a specific person, but you can't, like, you can never inhibit somebody from telling something that's factually correct. That's a little bit insane to me that such a thing exists.
It is. And I think in the case of Hayden, you've got somebody who, it's interesting, because since this happened to me, I've had so many people approach me who knew Hayden 10, 20 years ago and tell me their story about how he financially ripped them off, walked away with their money, or they've had a terrible experience with him in court. And so you've got all of this, and then you've got Hayden is trying to build himself a career and a reputation as being a media commentator. He has in his Twitter bio, I think, media commentator. And so he appeared, or he used to appear, on Russia Today. And they're trying to wheel, he sort of got himself a niche, mainly on Russia Today, commentating on transgender issues. And therefore, he would be arguing that children could consent to puberty blockers and things. And he's also made a series of statements on social media talking about the age of consent, and saying it's much lower in European countries. So when you've got this issue of transgenderism and safety, women argue rightly that it's not safe to allow men who identify as women in their bathrooms, in their changing rooms, in rape shelters, in domestic violence shelters, in sports, and that actually sex segregated spaces should exist, and this is a whole issue of women's safety. You don't want boys in the girls' changing rooms, and this gives all sorts of paedophiles cover. Here you have someone who actually has got a criminal record for sexually assaulting a teenager, trying to set the tone of debate, trying to influence policy, trying to make themselves a name for themselves as an advocate for transgender rights, actually then it becomes a matter of public interest, because you're trying to make yourself a public figure and say, well, this is why children should be able to take puberty blockers and the age of consent should be lower, etc., etc. The public could easily argue, well, hang on, haven't you got your own personal interests in this because of your own history and your own story? And maybe Hayden could say, well, actually, I think that he could make a case for, I think that actually it's wrong that you should be prosecuted for sex with 14-year-olds. I don't agree with him, but do you know what I mean? But he sort of wanted to put himself out there as a public figure to argue against things that impinge on women's safety, but thinks that his own backstory should be completely written out of existence, and we should 100% accept the fact that he's a woman because he says he is. So I think there is very much a public interest element in it. And secondly, I haven't repeatedly brought it up, to be fair, but I did bring it up in the context of he was traducing me all the time, saying Caroline Farrow's.
Sorry, you just cut out. Let me see if that's on. Oh, okay, everything's fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Oh, am I back on?
Yes. The last thing that you're saying is that you had brought up something in a different
context.
So
I'm not interested, really, to be fair, in all the time saying Hayden is a paedophile or Hayden has got this conviction. However, when I was under sustained attack from him and he kept saying that I was the reprobate, he would say, oh, I had an ex-MP who was very controversial on my case, calling me mentally ill and this, that, and the other. And Hayden was saying, well, I've never had an MP say this against me. I've never had a judge describe me in these terms. Gosh, she is a priest's wife, and look what a judge has said about her. And I just said, well, no, actually, a judge has had plenty of things to say about you. And maybe that was on the 11 occasions. He's got 11 convictions for 21 counts of fraud. He's got the conviction for, a fray and hitting someone around the head with a golf club, and he's got the sexual assault conviction. So for him to be sort of putting himself up there as, I'm the great moral arbiter. I've never.
To be fair, those are all charges very common with women, right? Violence, sex abuse of kids, and fraud. Those are typically female crimes, right? I've seen the UK crime statistics. The number of child sexual assaults by women has gone up by like 10,000% over the last 3 years. I know things are going crazy over there.
Yeah. And so, in the light of who Hayden sort of advocates himself as and what he's trying to do, then I think that his criminal record is completely relevant. It speaks to the heart of his credibility, because he has got this very colourful criminal record. There are so many people who claim that he's ruined their lives, through.
Yeah. It's very weird to hear you make this very impassioned kind of legal-esque argument. Like, of course we should be allowed to talk about someone's criminal past because it informs on what their motivations are for their current behavior. Like, to make that kind of statement to me is just like, duh.
I know.
It has to be entered in a legal document. It was actually absurd, completely insane.
Well, you think that's absurd? I mean, this is so funny.
Well, hold on. Let's. I want to continue down the timeline. So we're at a point where he's suing that woman. Say her name again.
Kate Scott-L.
And he's just kind of like breaking out into the mainstream. At what point does he start to get involved with you? And who comes first? Is it Hayden or the doctor who
the doctor
comes into your life first?
Yeah, so I think first of all it was the doctor, closely followed by Hayden. And it was really interesting because he made some comment at me in January 2019.
The doctor?
No, Hayden was
okay.
first. And I said something like, well, have you hit anyone round the head with a golf club or something like that? I made some quip. And he was like, you disgusting bigot. Are you asking for a writ, Caroline? I thought, right, okay.
Is it written like a lawsuit? Like
yeah,
a
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And it's interesting, you know, you look at his history as well. So before he got involved in transgender activism, when he was at Birkbeck, which was his university, he sued all the students there as well. they all got high court writs and were sued for things. He sued his former landlady and filmed himself delivering the law. You know, he really is a Yaniv type. He filmed himself delivering the lawsuit to her door, and he posts on Facebook saying, you know, revenge is a dish best served in the royal courts of justice. So, you know,
it's weird how often transgender types are litigious, like especially pro se litigious. It sort of shines a light on how the entire thing is like these micro power plays. Like I get to walk into your bathrooms, I get to go into your changing rooms, I get to take up your sports, and I get to sue you whenever I want to pro se, and I know just enough law to make it very expensive to fight. Even without any chance of winning. And I have just enough experience to make it a huge pain to deal with without actually needing to prove a point or anything. It's just like this extreme level of like passive aggressiveness that bleeds into like a power and control fantasy.
Yeah, no, totally. And there's another issue of public interest here in that. So Hayden doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job. He's not employed, but he styles himself as a flying lawyer, and he likes to post pictures of all his travels. He's always traveling to South Africa, or he's a member of some fancy London club, and he posts pictures of his fine dining there. Or he'll travel first class on a train and show you a picture of, you know, his marvelous his marvelous meal on a train.
Yeah,
or
he likes to show off the good life, right? Trying to make people envious.
And yet he, every single claim he issues, he gets help with fees, which means, so you and I, if I decide that you've been defamatory and I want to sue you, I have to put down 5% of the total amount that I'm suing you for.
Really?
So yes.
Really? So
yes.
if someone has caused you $1 million of damage, you can't sue them unless you can pony up $50,000?
That's right.
That is what is wrong with you people? How did you develop a system that works this badly?
I know. So everyone says, you know, the UK for libel lawsuits, but and in some ways, but yeah, you have to put down 5%, and this is to act as a sort of, you know, to stop everybody from suing each other all the time, you know, to show that you've got a claim and that you're serious. And so because Hayden is on various benefits, again, I'm not doxing him. I think he tweeted that he was on various benefits, and I know he's said that he has anxiety and depression.
So you get to waive. So in the U.S., if you want to, there's court fees. If you file something, you have to pay like a couple $100 just for the court fees. So we call this in forma pauperis, which means as a pauper, as a person of poverty, an indignant person. So he gets to file these lawsuits claiming $1 million, but then because he's in forma pauperis, he doesn't have to pay anything to do this.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, he's figured this out.
yeah. So basically, every time he issues a claim, there's a little code and it says HWF, help with fees. So when he sued me for, like, I think it was between £100,000 and £250,000, he did not have to pay any fees at all. And of course, because he represents himself in court and he loves a bit of that, you know, it's a proper LARPing fantasy. I mean, it's so funny. He's there and he sticks his hands in his, you know, black blazer pocket, pretending it's a gown, and talks about me learned friends to the other side, and you're just dying with embarrassment for him. It's just awful, you know. It's really cringeworthy, you know. But yeah, he doesn't have to pay a penny in court fees, and he represents himself, so it costs him nothing. This is really easy meat for him. He just issues a claim.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've experienced this firsthand. It's really crazy how because of, I mean, I'm sure this has existed before the internet, but the internet makes it just so easy to find like a random crazy person who has nothing better to do, who will use their position of absolute poverty and like having zero assets and zero future and zero credibility to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna like dedicate myself to trying and cause this one person as much inconvenience as possible. And there's no recourse to it. You can't, like in the US, it's extremely difficult to get someone labeled like a vexes.
Same. So
Yeah,
I mean, he's sued in the High Court alone. He's sued over 40 people,
incredible.
and that's just in the last few years. We don't know because of the way things are recorded. We don't know how many people he's sued in the county courts because there isn't a central register. So he could just. He's one of these people, I think, that he falls over in the supermarket or he sees an opportunity in the supermarket and he issues a claim. I think he sued a supermarket over COVID restrictions. You know, he had
Wow.
a disability badge and he was exempt from wearing a mask and they made him wear a mask.
Usually when you say that though, it's like someone sues Walmart trying to get a payday, for a hurt knee or bruised knee. But like in his case, I'm sure it's more of it's a independently operated business and the owner is a woman and he just wants to drag her to court over and over again. And that's probably the impetus. It's not really the making the payday.
I think that's the impetus with the people. I think there's two things going on. So I think he does sue big name companies because it's easier for them to issue a payout than to kind of do the whole go to court, pay the fees, etc. So I think he banks on that. But I think with some of the people he sues, like me, with Graham Linehan, he wants to take a big scalp and he wants to change the law and he wants to show how effective he is. And look at me, I'm this great, transgender. I'm this great advocate for transgender rights. Look, I'm changing the law and case law. It's very funny, actually. He has changed case law because he sued somebody, Bronwyn Dickinson, for harassment for what she'd said on Twitter. And he raised the bar. The judge was having none of it. So the bar has now been raised so high, it's almost impossible to sue somebody for harassment on Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, good for him. What a win.
Well, no, it was a massive lose. But because the judge said to him, well, she'd blocked you and you were going mining for offence. And this is true. She'd blocked him from her feed. And he was looking, and it's the same with me. I've blocked him from my feed, but he was going looking for offence.
Mm-hmm.
And this, the tweets that I got, which we'll get onto, that I got arrested for, again, I had blocked him from my feed. But the judge, actually, it's now very hard to sue somebody for harassment on Twitter as a direct result of him constantly suing people for what they've said on Twitter. So, but he will go after individuals, I think, to take a big scalp, to make a name for himself, to get a bit of attention, and to sort of, show his mettle. I noticed there's been a couple of people recently that he doesn't like very much, conservative news commentators, and he's been non-stop. Lawrence Fox is one of them, and Calvin Robinson is another. And he's been non-stop sort of tweeting about them, setting up hashtags, tweeting, quite nasty and derogatory things. And Lawrence Fox hit back and said, this person thinks he's a woman or something. And he then made a big thing, I've sent a legal letter to you, and did an okay emoji. And it seems to me that he goes around trying to provoke people. And then as soon as he gets the response, he's like, right, I'm going to sue you. And I think he does it for attention. I think he does it because he wants to make this name for himself. I think it's all part of his bizarre psychological makeup. He genuinely I think he genuinely enjoys suing people, but I think as well he feels vindicated. That he actually feels that he is the victim in all this. How dare you? I can be as rude and horrible as you two I want, but as soon as you get anything back, so it's all about sort of reputation building, as well as he does enjoy going after women. I think. He's gone after me, Kate Scottow, Louise Moody, Bronwyn Dickinson. He's going after another woman. He does seem to to go after predominantly women who criticize him.
Has he only sued you once, or have you had
No,
multiple? Yeah, I was going
oh,
to
three
ask.
times.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that there's multiple incidents. So the
There'll
first
be,
time he sued you was in 2019. Has he sued you like
yeah,
once every year since then?
yeah, there'll
Okay.
be four after that. No. So the first time he sued me, so going back to 2019, he this Kiwifarms thread set up,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't aware of it at first. And I was fighting yet another battle because I had criticised Susie Green, who is the head of, who was running this a charity called Mermaids, which advocates for transgender young people. And I had been on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan with her, and we'd had a debate about the Girl Guides. So the Girl Guides has decided that it will admit boys who say they're girls. And if you're in the Girl Guides and you've got a daughter in the Girl Guides and she's going on an overnight camping trip, your daughter could share a tent with somebody who says he's a boy, and you as a parent would not be allowed to know because you'd be such a bigot that you'd obviously put a stop to it. So there was a big safeguarding issue with Girl Guides saying that anyone who said they were a girl would be accepted as a girl. So it would mean that you could have men who said they were women helping out with Girl Guides. You could have boys who said they were girls attending. And I made the point that where you get a teenage girl and a teenage boy, it doesn't matter how they identify, sleeping together in a tent, you could have a bit of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a safeguarding issue.
How old are the people in this group?
11 to 15. No, I think it's 11 to 16.
Yeah, there's actually because of this has been linked, I think, to the rise of internet pornography. The amount of early age sexual abuse is going up. Like young boys are molesting young girls earlier than ever before because they are becoming sexually active and exposed to porn like extremely young. So even at that age, there's like an unacceptable level of risk.
Yeah, no, that's right. There's report after report after report showing, parents aren't being sensible and guarding what their children are seeing on the internet. And, young children are being exposed to porn and becoming sort of addicted and desensitized and sort of pornified at an ever earlier age. So I had this debate with Susie Green on Good Morning Britain about Girl Guides. And she was being really disingenuous. And she said, oh, trans girls are girls, just like any other girls. They just want to be with their mates. And I said, don't be so ridiculous. And the debate continued onto Twitter afterwards, at which point this is nothing new or innovative. I said that she was guilty of child abuse because when Susie Green's son was 16, on his 16th birthday, she took him to Thailand and he had the op on his 16th birthday. He was on puberty blockers, I think, from the age of 11 and cross-sex hormones from 12. And I said, let's call this what it is. It's child abuse. It's mutilation. It's castration.
Let me clarify. So the Mermaids organization that has these camping events, you spoke to one of their spokespeople and
No. So the Girl Guides have the camping events, and Mermaids are an advocacy, or were an advocate, very controversial charity that advocate for trans youth.
And you were debating with one of their spokespeople who is a natal woman who has a transgender male and female
that's
son?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Susie Green, she's got a thread on Mermaid. Oh, it says Mermaids. So she has a son. It's kind of like a Jazz Jennings situation. So from the age of 11, she put her son on television. She had a documentary about her son's, in inverted commas, journey. There's a horrible clip of her laughing with her mother, because the son had been on, because he'd been on these puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. There was no sort of penile and scrotal material to work with. So they
Jazz. You're talking about Jazz Jennings.
No. But this happened in the UK first. This happened in sort of 20.
Oh, so this is an identical story, because I remember with Jazz Jennings, it was when they put the little boy on hormone blockers, they never hit male puberty, so they never have their penis doesn't grow to an adult size, and as a result, the surgeon does not have enough sensitive penile tissue to convert into like the fake clitoris and the neo vagina. So they don't have the material to work with to create a sensitive opening, and as it's just like a numb hole in the
Yeah,
pelvis, and there's
yeah. And
they're having like a macabre laugh about how gruesome this is.
yeah, and they have to use colon tissue. But what was really distasteful about this, in this documentary that Susie Green made about her son, she and her mother, so Jackie is the son's name. He was Jack, now he's Jackie. She and Jackie's grandmother are laughing on camera about this boy's shrunken genitals and how there's not enough to work with, and she was waggling her pinky finger to demonstrate, and that was just so
Talking about her
abhorrent.
son?
Yeah,
Oh, that's fucked
yeah,
up.
exactly. I mean, it was so abhorrent. It was a real invasion of his dignity, his privacy, and she's given these controversial TED talks about how her son wanted to play with girls' toys at the age of 2, and the father was homophobic and didn't like it and got very cross. And she knew from the age of 2 that he was transgender, and thought that there was something wrong. And it's just like, if you're looking at your 2-year-old son, trying to pathologize him or say that there's something wrong because he's playing with girls' toys, what is wrong with you? I mean, I've got 5 kids. I've got 4 girls and a boy, and my son is the youngest. And having 4 older girls, he's done the full lot. He's picked up their Barbies and their dolls. He's put on princess. He's done all of that, and not once have I sort of looked at him and gone, "Oh."
Well, these moms, they really want like a special child. I'm pretty sure a 2-year-old in particular will play with literally anything you put in front of them. I'm pretty sure a child will occupy themselves by slamming a cabinet door for an hour straight. And that doesn't mean that they want to be a carpenter. That just means that that's what's occupying their time at that moment,
Yeah. So she has got a lot of controversy. So after this heated debate on Good Morning Britain, I went onto Twitter and I said, she says that girls just want to be girls. Actually, and this was 2018, the debate wasn't where it is now. And I wanted to highlight to people exactly what it was that she was advocating for. So I said it's castration at the age of 18. Sorry, at the age of 16, on his 16th birthday, she had him castrated. This is child abuse, this is neglect. Because I thought, people think, oh, advocating for trans youth, it's all niceness and fluffiness. I wanted to say, no, this is the absolute terrifying, abhorrent medical pathway that they want to take your children down. This is not just fluffy words. This is what this woman does. And actually, if somebody's had their child given a sex reassignment operation at the age of 16, you should be very wary of that person and what that group is advocating. So she then reported me to the police. And in March 2019, I had a phone call from the police inviting me to come in for interview under caution because I had misgendered her son following an interview on Good Morning Britain. And those were the words that the police used to me. And I, as is my wont, I put it on Twitter. And the reason that people do...
Were you in a conversation with this person, or were you just talking about the movement as a whole?
I was talking. I wasn't in a conversation, so she wasn't tagged in.
Okay,
I was talking about
someone notified her of it, and then she filed a report on her own.
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably I wouldn't be surprised if it was Adrian Harrop actually, but I don't know that. And so the police then wanted to interview me under caution, and I put a Twitter thread out about it. And you might say, a lot of people say, Caroline, why do you put these things on Twitter? It's best to keep your powder dry. But actually, is it because you want the attention? Actually, it's not that. And I've never realized when it went viral, I didn't realize on both occasions that this would happen. I do it because when you're being interrogated by the police for something you've said or something you've thought, actually, social media is the only weapon you've got. You want to tell people what's happening. You want, you feel really alone. You feel really scared. You've got the institution against you. You don't know what's going to happen. And actually, you put it on social media, and it's just a way of getting support from other people and letting people know, hey, this really messed up thing is happening in the UK. So I put it on Twitter, it went viral, and then it hit the front pages of all the newspapers. You know, Catholic journalist is going to be questioned by the police for misgendering. And Susie Green realised that she had misfired here, and she withdrew the charges. And she said, I don't want Caroline Farrow to be seen as a victim. You know, and here are these terrible things she said. I don't want her to be seen as a victim. And I got called back onto Good Morning Britain and told off by Piers Morgan. And yeah, you know, that kind of died away. But it was quite frightening at the time. I thought, goodness, I've just published my opinion, and I've got the police on me for misgendering. That obviously angered all the trans rights activists. So immediately afterwards, I then begin to get a lot of offline harassment. So we had a period of 3 weeks where I had pizzas delivered to my house, or fast pizzas or fast food, like 8 or 9 times a day. It was really, you know, we didn't want to open the door. It became overwhelming, and we phoned Just Eat. It turned out the orders were being put in through Just Eat. Just Eat put a block on things, and then the people who were sending them managed to get around it by switching our postcode around, like letters in our postcode, or they were ordering it in different people's names. And it was food that was ordered and not paid for. So you'd get some irate Indian delivery driver, you know, with £85 worth of curry wanting you to pay. And you'd have to say, look, I'm really sorry. And it was really, it was a form of harassment. I started getting, someone published my email on the net, and I started getting like so many spam emails. I had my account, I had my name and my photo and accounts made for me on Pornhub. I was receiving letters from around the world sent to my address, and talking about my family members, naming my dad, who was 79. I had people drawing pictures of my children that got off Facebook. People accusing me of child abuse because I posted a picture of my toddler eating birthday cake in their high chair with no top on. They said, oh, naked pictures of children. And we had this period, Josh, of just, I can't describe, just non-stop real life abuse, harassment. You know, we had sex toys ordered to the church. You know, my picture put on Pornhub, an account made for me on Pornhub. My children's names were signed up to transgender teen forums. And it became really, really, really overwhelming. And I had something of a mini breakdown, because I just wanted it to stop. And I didn't handle it well, because I was very vocal about what was happening, saying, oh, this is so awful. So this thread then got set up to support me on Mumsnet, saying, oh my goodness, have you seen what's happening to Caroline Farrow? This is terrible. And at the same time, there was a blog set up that was posting about me 50 times a day. It posted death threats, rape threats. It doxed my children's schools. It boasted about ringing up my husband. It told people, it looked up the parish newsletter. It told people where my husband was going to be at any one given time if you wanted to go and accost him about his terrible wife. So Mumsnet set up a support thread about me, or someone did, saying, oh, I just want to say, Caroline, this is really horrible. This needs to be stopped. And I kid you not, within a 48-hour period, Stephanie Hayden went onto that forum and posted over 100 times. And not only did he post on Mumsnet, on the thread about me, he went in and posted 100 times. And then he started setting up other threads about me, and what a liar I am and how awful. And at this point, I hadn't really had much to do with him. So I was like, this is so odd, you know. And he actually then got banned from Mumsnet as a result of his trolling of me in March 2019. They banned him. And that obviously sort of set him off. So then, as a result of that, every single day he was tweeting about me. He was setting up hashtags with my name. He was setting up hashtags with Our Lady of Hypocrites, and it was just non-stop, just tweet thumping all the time. And a lawyer said to me, Caroline, I think you should sue him for harassment. This is outrageous. He won't leave you alone. So we got the preliminary stuff together, and she said to me, what you need to do is you need to say to him and Dr. Harrop, ask them to stop tweeting at you, because then, you know, you've covered yourself legally. You've said, could you please stop tweeting about me? So I did. And Hayden then said, oh, I'm going to follow my, my Article 9 and 10 rights. I shall tweet as I see fit, blah, 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 and carried on. And he began to escalate and escalate and escalate. This escalation then got picked up on the Kiwifarms. And people began to talk about, have you seen he's targeting Caroline Farrow? And one poster in particular called themselves, so they called themselves TYMNS, which I later learned was the man you never saw. And it began posting stuff about Hayden and Harrop. And they decided that that poster was me. It wasn't me. And there were a number of reasons you could know it wasn't me. Firstly, because when it was posting, you know, I was doing other stuff. Secondly, the sort of language it used, okay, so I can swear a bit, you know, I can F and I can B, but one thing that I don't do is I never blaspheme. If I say Jesus Christ, then I'm talking about our Lord and Savior. I would never take the Lord's name in vain. Just no, it's a complete anathema. I never do it orally, and I never do it in written speech either. So this poster, posted a lot of blasphemy, and it set up this account called Troon of the Bailey. You know what a troon is, and it was a joke, because in the UK in the 1980s there was this series about this high-flying lawyer called Rumpole of the Bailey, and so Troon of the Bailey was sort of this joke. And so Hayden decided that I was Troon of the Bailey. And the reason that he decided this was because this person had criticised someone called Pippa Bunce, who is another well-known transgender person in the UK. Pippa Pips Bunce, who works for Credit Suisse First Boston, and he's sort of binary fluid. So sometimes he comes into the office dressed as a man, and then he's Pip. And then on other days, he comes into the office dressed as a woman, and he's Pippa. And of course, you know what I'm going to say, when he's dressed as a woman, and we all have to call him Pippa, he doesn't wear what an ordinary business woman would wear to the office. He wears, you know, the basques and the rah-rah skirts and the fishnet stockings, and, you know, just looks...
Yeah, every time.
So this poster started talking about Pippa Bunce working for Credit Suisse First Boston, and I used to work for Credit Suisse First Boston. So they decided that I had to be this poster. Actually, when I worked at Credit Suisse First Boston, I left before Pippa Pips Bunce started, so our paths didn't cross. Pippa Pips, this guy, worked in IT. I worked in equity research, so our paths would never have crossed, even if we'd been there at the same time. But anyway, it wasn't me. But, you know, these people, they just sort of latch onto something. So Hayden began then posting that he was reporting me to the police, that he was going to Surrey Police. He had identified it. It was me. I was well known, the suspect's well known to Surrey Police. And him and Harrop start making all these jokes in the lead up to this period about they're going to come to my house. They're playing golf in Surrey near me. They're going down the A3. They're going to have a quick 9 holes at Westminster Cathedral, which is obviously the UK's premier Catholic cathedral. You know, it's a sort of capital cathedral. How they're going to go to Westminster Cathedral and then go to Surrey and enjoy 9 holes and play golf. And they talked about the A3, which is the road leading to my house. And there were lots of jokes, banter about coming to my house. And I began to get really quite worried, because I'd had all this offline harassment. I'd had this blog threatening that Hayden was going to come around my house, that there was going to be a lawsuit. I'd better wear my best knickers. I'm going to be nailed to the wall of the Royal Court of Justice and fucked. Literally, and it kept talking about wear my knickers and you're going to shit yourself, and but don't worry, Farrow, no one would rape you. You've got the sexual qualities of a bucket of slime. All this kind of stuff. So
it's an anonymous account, you said?
Yeah, it was a blog it was a blog site called Tombstone Teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And it kept talking about how Hayden's going to come around. Hayden's not afraid to stand, Hayden's not afraid to sue you. Hayden's going to come around your house. You're going to get a big surprise. And I began to absolutely panic. And what do I do when I panic? I spurge, I whatever, hands up. So I began to get really worried because he was escalating, saying he was reporting me to the police. On Easter Sunday, he said, "Oh, game, set and match, my Surrey stalker, you piece of shit." I was like, what? It's Easter Sunday and you're, I've got every jot and tittle and apostrophe. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And then the next thing I know, a week after Easter, he comes around my house in person to deliver me the lawsuit. And it was all pre-planned. So he goes off to the Royal Courts of Justice in the morning and says, Caroline Farrow is harassing me so badly on Twitter. I need an injunction. She needs to be stopped. And he fortunately, the judge said, well, no, I'm not going to give you an injunction. She can come and answer in person. So on the Monday, he gets this lawsuit. He could have got a process server to deliver it, but no, he comes to my house. Adrian Harrop live tweets the fact that he's coming to my house. And they did it in sort of vague language. I used to be cabin crew, so they talked about cabin crew, 10 minutes to landing, and I was saying to my husband, oh my goodness, I think they're coming to the house. Oh, and he was like, Caroline, don't be so stupid, don't be silly. They're just big boys waving their bits and pieces about that, they wouldn't come here. They're not that stupid. And of course, he came round. And in fact, it turned out he'd come round and I wasn't in. And then, in fact, funnily enough, I was buying a computer. I just got a new job and I needed to buy a computer for my new job. So he came in, we weren't there. Then we had to go and pick up the kids from school. About 4:45, I'm sat in the office. There's ring, ring, ring on the door, and it's him. And Robin says, it's Stephanie Hayden. He's here. He wants to give you a lawsuit. And I said, no, I'm not answering. I'm just not going. I'm not going. Tell him to give it to you. So Robin said, well, can you give it to me, please? And he said, no, it has to be handed to Ms. Farrow directly. And it turns out that's a complete lie. No, it doesn't. And I refused to go. I just went and took my camera phone and I took loads of pictures of him and stood there at my door. And eventually he went away. And I was so traumatized, Josh, I refused to pick it up. I just thought, if I don't pick this up, this isn't real. And it was like Robin had to go and retrieve it a few hours later because it was blowing around the car park. and what was really funny was, I don't know if you saw, but we have a sacristan who's this very spry 85-year-old lady. And she saw him as well. She's going, oh, Caroline, did you see? I was like, yeah, Maggie, I did. This 85-year-old lady who's never seen a transgender person in her life. So that kind of went around the village. So we get this lawsuit, and basically it says that I have to be in court. This was Monday night, that I have to be in court on the Thursday. So he'd done it deliberately, and the blog was boasting, ha ha ha, you've only got 2 days to find yourself legal representation, you're going to learn an expensive lesson, Farrow, oh, Robin's going to be writing the check, and really boasting about how much money it was going to cost me. So we go to court on a Thursday, and Hayden plays some very dirty tricks legally because he knows how to. So the procedure is that 24 hours or the night before, you exchange skeleton arguments, which is, the skeleton of what you're going to argue in court. Mm-hmm. Hayden didn't do that. Instead of giving us the skeleton argument, he filed it with the court directly. And my lawyer said, well, that's a bit of a dirty trick. That's really bad. So we had no idea what his argument really was going to be. We had sort of like some pleadings
Is
for...
the exchange of arguments a formality, like as a professional courtesy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't get his argument until 5 minutes before we went into court. With hindsight, we should have just delayed it, but we thought we had enough and were ready. It turns out that Hayden said that I had tweeted literally hundreds and hundreds of times about him in this weekend period. And I sat there horrified, and my husband sat there horrified, like, Caroline, what have you done? And, I was just gaslit because I thought, I'm sure I haven't tweeted about him that much. I'm sure I haven't, And basically the judge said, well, what prompted this? And did anyone try and stop each other from tweeting? And we said, yes, she actually asked Harrop and Hayden to stop. And basically the judge realised that it was a bit more two-way, but he didn't like the fact that I'd referred to Hayden's fat man hands, because I'd said if he comes down here with his fat man hands wielding a golf club, and he's like, this is terrible, fat man hands, how dare she? But he only issued he issued an injunction against me, but only on the proviso that Hayden had to give undertakings to the court that he would not post anything online about me either. So effectively, we were both banned from talking about each other online. But Hayden was desperate to get this injunction. He was like, oh, my honour, how about if I give undertakings to the court? How about, so although he wasn't bound by an injunction, when you give undertakings to the court, it's the same thing. You have to promise not to. So he went to court to get an injunction against me and effectively got one against himself. And when I got home, or a few days later, I printed out my entire Twitter feed and I counted how many tweets I'd made about him. And where he'd said that I'd made 250, it was 10.
Yeah.
Because he'd not given any schedule. He'd not, he'd not specified it, because he never does. He just sort of throws these charges at you. So then we had this period.
Well, I just want to interrupt. It is lying is a really good tactic, I've noticed, in legal arguments, because I think when you deal with like a lawyer is going to make assumptions based off opposing counsel that are like, okay, well, they're going to do this and this based off the truth, the reality. And then when the opponent is literally just completely okay fabricating things whole cloth and lying to the court, which you presume they won't do because that is potentially perjury, but they just assume they're going to get away with it. It actually really catches competent lawyers off guard, because they just don't factor that in, that, oh, he's just going to lie throughout this entire thing.
That's exactly it. You don't, and it was really funny. There was the only thing that my lawyer had been worried about was that there was this accusation that I had rung him up. And I was like, I haven't rung him up. I don't know his number. Where's this from? And I was talking about it outside the court to a journalist called Joni Walsh. I was saying, this is really odd. And she was like, oh, Caroline, this explains it. She said, I kept getting phone calls saying, Caroline, is that you? Is that you? And basically, she had phoned him by accident. And he was so paranoid, he thought it was me. But what was really funny was that he said, oh, yes, and her voice was very distinctive. He tweeted about it. Her voice was very distinctive. Well, actually, yeah, my voice might be distinctive, but Joni's got a very broad Birmingham accent, which is extremely distinctive. So it just showed how sort of off kilter he was. He was sort of throwing all these things out there. And then in this court case, he said that I was this mother. He said that I was this the man you never saw, and this Troon of the Bailey account. And, he just looked really silly because it didn't add up. The evidence he was presenting, everyone just looked embarrassed. It's like, what's the evidence? What's the relevance of this? Where's, this is just something you've cobbled together out there. The judge was very keen to move on from that point. So we then had this crazy situation between, this is where it gets quite funny actually, between April, so from about May 2019 onwards, where both of us weren't allowed to talk about each other online. Fine, subject to the actual hearing for harassment, which we were pretty confident that we would, win. And suddenly, out of the blue, I get a court summons for contempt of court. And this is what Hayden does. He gets injunctions against people. Now, an injunction is something that you should use as a shield to protect yourself. Hayden uses them as a weapon. He gets an injunction against somebody, and then he goes looking to see how he, if you've broken it, or how he can claim that you've broken it. So he claimed that I had posted, and I'd posted on this forum, Spinster, which is, it's like the Fed, is it on the Fediverse?
It's on the Fediverse. It's an instance ran by Graham Linehan, and it is like a feminist turf mumsnet version of like Post, another Fediverse instance, or Mastodon, which is very progressive as opposed to Spinster. But yeah, it's kind of like Twitter, but it's on the Fediverse, which is like a different network.
Yeah, and it's only for, they're very specific. It's only for women and actual, natal born women and women who disagree with gender ideology. So Hayden was not invited onto this forum. He was, he shouldn't have been there. And I made a couple of comments about Kate Scottow's arrest. I didn't reference Hayden at all. I was just, there were general comments. And the next thing I know, I get this summons, for contempt of court, which has got a 2-year penal notice attached to it, because he says I've broken the terms of the injunction with 4 comments I made. And I'm not kidding. One of my comments was, I don't need 50,000 photo filters not to look like a piece of pork pie, not to look like a pork pie. And he said, my use of photo filters is very well known and is a joke on social media. And so she's clearly referencing me and is in breach of the injunction and should go to prison.
Oh, God. It actually requires some kind of visual aid, because it's true. Stephanie Hayden, on all of his social media accounts, his face is completely blown out. Like, he takes the face filter and cranks that shit up to like 13, so you can barely make out any details of his face. I'll try to throw up a picture on screen so you can see. That's fun. Actually, I found the famous one that is almost definitely what he's referring to, and it's okay. Here, look. This is Twitter, right? That's what he portrays himself as on Twitter, using the bleeding edge of an iPhone face filter. And this is, I believe this is, I mean, you can barely tell they're the same. I'm pretty sure that's him out in a boot. With a candid angle, without the assistance of Apple Inc.
So I can't actually see what you're showing, but yeah. So I was then in the ludicrous situation, and he actually said that he hadn't seen these posts, but somebody had sent them to him while he was on holiday in Australia. So this was just so vexatious, so contentious. He's saying that I'm referring to him via inference, but he hasn't even seen them directly. Someone sent them to him while he's in Australia. Well, how is that harassment? That's not, what the injunction was about. So I found myself in the ludicrous position of having to write a witness statement saying, I have never previously referred to Stephanie Hayden as a pork pie or any other kind of food stuff. So I am unsure why they think that this is a reference to them. I mean, just ludicrous.
I mean, he's kind of making the statement that his alias, his professional alias, is pork pie, and that kind of statement is a direct allusion to him.
And then one of the other things I'd said is about how people make up hashtags, to harass women, and he's I said, oh yeah, they did that about me. They set up Caroline Farrow hashtags and Our Lady of Hypocrite hashtags, and he said, well, that's exactly what she accused me of in her defense. So she's obviously talking about me. So she's in breach of the injunction. And actually, a couple of people had done it. But do you know what I mean? It was so. And he attached a 2-year penal notice to this, and it was obviously to threaten and intimidate. And this is he obviously wanted me to settle or to offer him money or to frighten me. Then my organisation gets involved and writes a petition saying, he wants to send Caroline to jail for 2 years. So he then says, oh, Caroline must have done this. It's all her fault, blah, 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 and adds that to his charges. And I wasn't involved in any of that. And we had to go through disclosure in which I proved that I wasn't responsible for any of it because I had to forward company internal stuff from my organisation showing that I didn't write it, I wasn't involved, nothing to do with me, Gov. But actually, you're trying to put one of our employees in prison for 2 years. We're going to speak up. So it kind of all then, boiled on, really, bubbled on under the surface. And it gets to the point where he thinks that every single poster on Kiwifarms is me. And he's reporting me to the police left, right and centre. Oh, that's her alias. Oh, that's her alias. That's her. That's her. Oh, she's in breach of the injunction. She's posting about me on Kiwifarms. Oh, go and arrest her. And then it gets to just before lockdown. And I agree to settle with him because he's got no money, and fighting this thing is expensive. So yeah, we agree. It's lockdown. My kids are going crazy. Everyone's going crazy. It's lockdown. This is just nonsense. So, and the court, he was saying that he wasn't allowed to leave the house because he was really clinically vulnerable, and he was stalling on his side because we'd given all our information, and he had no answer to it. We'd proved our case, really. And the other interesting thing is as well, he was so bad. We'd missed a court deadline because I'd switched lawyers, and he offered to settle, right? He said, look, in February that year, he said, let's settle. So I said, okay, we'll settle. And we filled out all the paperwork and we did everything. And then he decided at the last minute he was going to pull out of the settlement. And the reason that he did that was because it was the day before our disclosure deadline. So he was hoping that we would be so distracted by the fact that he's going to settle that we wouldn't meet disclosure and he could do us. But fortunately, we had in the back of our minds that he might be pulling a stunt. And yeah, he was. So come April, he then offers to drop hands, and we say, okay, because we're, whatever, we're not going to get any money out of you, and this has just gone on too long. So we drop hands, at which point mad journalist who I'd fallen out with, because everyone falls out with each other in this movement, Joni Walsh, gets really annoyed that I've settled with him. She's like, Caroline, you were giving it the big, and all these people donated to your crowdfunder and you've just taken all their money and you're a great thief, and and just got really, really angry with me over settling. And I can answer any crowdfunder questions. I mean, all I will say is that defending myself in court against this person has cost thousands and thousands of pounds. I don't really want to. How much did you raise? Or how much did I raise? Yeah, overall in my crowdfunder, I think I raised about £6,000.
Oh, and that's what she's accusing you of stealing, as if reaching a settlement would easily exceed $6,000 or pounds.
Yeah. And yes, I had my work was raising money, but they realized there'd been a crowdfunder set up. So they were like, can you use that first, actually, which is quite a reasonable thing to do. And we'd had some back and forth because I'd thought that there might be surplus. And then it turned out that actually, there wasn't going to be. But she decided that I had ripped everybody off. That I'd taken it, and I'd spent all the crowdfunded money on a MacBook, and just went absolutely off on one. Yeah, and of course,
that's really terrible of her to do, especially if she's supposed to be on your side, because it's blatant that any kind of lawsuit is going to exceed $6,000 in expenses, no matter what.
And then she then kind of got in with there was this troll that seemed to be very much on Hayden's side, and she then goes ahead and leaks all my WhatsApp conversations with her over the whole course of the suit to this troll. And this troll, obviously, who's linked to Hayden, one of the cases that he was in, says this troll was called Reporter Lau. First of all, it was Legal Aid Loser, then it was Reporter Lau. It was very clearly linked to him. I don't know if it was him. One court case found that he had very close links to it, and it certainly was publishing information that he, that could only have come from him.
Yeah.
And so, because she leaks all my WhatsApps to this, effectively going back to Hayden, Hayden then decides to sue me for a second time. And what had happened during that period, I don't know if you remember.
Can you disclose any of the information about your settlement?
Yeah, because it's all. So our settlement was just that we were going to not talk about each other again.
Okay, perfect.
Fine.
But then the texts come out, and the texts are retroactive. Like
So what had happened was, do you remember it all went a bit crazy on the thread? All these sock puppets from different people, and somebody had set up a sock puppet in the name of my daughter, and I had asked you, hey Josh, can you remove it? I'd asked Janny first of all, and they'd said they'd not realized that my daughter's surname was different to mine, and they're like, you've called your daughter that? That's a bit weird. No. And I was like, no, look, honestly, someone's posting on the Kiwifarms in my daughter's name. At that point she was 15, 16. She was applying for university, and it just wasn't fair. And I think you looked her up and you realized that she had no digital footprint at all. So you changed the name because you don't dox minors.
What we ended up doing, I think, with your thread is a fucking train wreck. To explain, it's literally, the name of the thread is just like I had no idea what was going on for the entire duration of this. I was either busy or doing something else, or I just didn't care. And it was all overseen by one of my admins named Ride, who pays a lot more attention to the transgender stuff. And we had a different thread for Adrian Yallop, for Stephanie Hayden, and for you. And eventually we just merged it all in. So there's one thread called the Adrian Yallop, Stephanie Hayden.
Adrian Harrop, yeah.
Harrop, sorry, not Yallop. Harrop, Caroline Farrow, like train wreck clusterfuck thread, and that's what we call it. And it's somebody, I can't say who with any certainty, with any scientific degree of certainty, but somebody has been making alt accounts and spamming at Caroline Farrow on that thread for years and years at this point.
Yeah. So where was it? Yeah. So you had you'd changed the name of you'd kindly taken my daughter's name off there because they were posting filth about me in my daughter's name. It was really horrible, and it could have affected her university applications. And at this point, I hadn't been posting on the Kiwifarms, but I knew somebody who was, or somebody told me that they were, and they were like, you might want to contact the staff. And I was at that point too, so I was too scared to talk to you in my own name because the Kiwifarms is what it was, and had this reputation.
To be fair, I discourage anyone from registering with their own name, but you were very insistent about it, so I permitted that.
And so I'd had this conversation with Joni about how I had been talking to someone who had been talking to the mods in order to try and work out who all these sock puppets were. Because the other thing was, we strongly suspected that one of the sock puppets was Hayden, because there was this data breach, and there was, even Justice Nicklin has asked Hayden in court, are you sure you haven't been posting on this thread? Because there were a lot of posts that were using his exact vernacular, strange idioms that only he uses. One account posted my mobile phone number and Louise Moody's phone number and Adrian Yallen's phone number, all people he'd sued, from this WhatsApp chat that had been leaked to him. And I had what was I saying? Yeah. So I knew we knew that he was likely posting on the thread. So I wanted to see if there was any IP information pertaining to that, because that would have really strengthened my case. You know, he's claiming that I've breached the injunction. Actually, mate, you've clearly breached it. And I didn't want to approach anybody in my own name, so I got given the details of an alt account on there. And very stupidly, on one occasion, there was a conversation about how his face looked like a biscuit, and I posted a picture of a biscuit on the thread. And I you know, I admitted that in court, because so Joni,
I testify under perjury that I was biscuit posting on the Kiwifarms.
I know, honestly. So Joni had said, "Oh yeah, Caroline was this poster." Actually, no, I wasn't. I just posted one picture of a biscuit. You know, which I know it was one of those happy face biscuits. But you know, I'm not going to lie. So yeah, I told the truth. Yes, I did. I got given these account details, and as soon as the person who owned the account saw I'd posted a picture of a biscuit, they immediately said, "What the hell are you doing? You could be in real trouble," and revoked all access. And I've actually got all the screenshots of messages to show that that's what happened. And what was really funny was that, of course, Hayden then made me disclose who had operated that account, you know, so he could go after them. I don't think he managed it in the end, because I think the person who operated the account had very, very good digital hygiene. Have good digital hygiene, people. So anyway, because Joni leaked all my WhatsApps to Hayden, he then sued me for a second time. And this was laughable. He sued me for fraudulent misrepresentation, because he said that if he'd known that I posted the picture of him as a biscuit on the farm, he would never have settled. But the thing is, fraudulent misrepresentation is a technical thing. It's if you're offering somebody something, and it's normally an insurance. So fraudulent misrepresentation is if you sue a supermarket because you've slipped over and broken your leg, but actually it then gets discovered, and an investigator finds that all the time that you've broken your leg, you're actually running, and you were lying to get an insurance payout. That's what fraudulent misrepresentation is. But yeah, he tried to sue me a second time for fraudulent misrepresentation, and we were really confident of winning that one, because he was suing me for matters which had already been settled. So you can't, if a matter's already been litigated, you can't relitigate a settled matter.
It's called double jeopardy in the
that's
US.
Yeah. It's Henderson v. Henderson in the UK. So yeah, he was trying to reopen settled litigation, and in the first settlement it said, you know, I concede all these claims about Kiwifarms and this, that, and the other. So he was sort of wanting a second bite of the cherry, saying, well, if I'd known she'd posted a picture of a biscuit, I wouldn't have settled. But once again, it goes down to the wire, and he offers to settle for a second time. And I'm not keen to, but my lawyer says, look, Caroline, you know, this is such a waste of time and money. And, you know, yeah, the judge might tell you off because you've posted a picture of a biscuit. Actually, the first thing he does is he writes to me and says, I need to pay him £2,000 to settle. And if I don't, he's going to go to the police. And obviously, if he goes to the police, my career, such as it is, will be over, blah, blah, blah. And it was like blackmail. Literally, it was very akin to blackmail. It was, you pay me $2,000.
That's a thing in law. You can effectively blackmail people legally. If it's a matter of court, you can go to someone and say, okay, I'm suing you, and for the measly fee of $5,000, I will settle out of court. And it's very, very hard to get caught doing this. There was a copyright troll in the US who did this. Effectively, he just sued everybody for copyright infringement and said, for $1,000, I'll quit. I'll stop suing you. And he had to do this like 100 times before a court was like, you're doing this on purpose.
Yeah, you know, and in the UK we don't have that, but it was very, very close. But you know, he asked for £2,000. We said no, you're not getting a penny, and then he came back and said, okay, I'll settle. So, and that was December 2020. So 2021 comes along, and you know, whatever. He's non-stop, and once again we agreed we wouldn't talk about each other. He's non-stop monitoring my feed to see whether or not I might be saying anything that might pertain to him. And at one point I had an email sent to me at I'd tweeted something about sex offenders, and I think it was about 6 o'clock on Saturday evening, 5:30. It was just the last thing I was typing before I was doing dinner and doing my stuff with the kids. And I then get an email from him, a legal threat from him, less than an hour later, saying, you said this at this time, and it was talking about sex offenders, and it was a reference to me, and I had to basically say, well, look, just because I'm talking about sex offenders and you happen to be one doesn't necessarily mean I could be talking about anyone. Go away, stop stalking me. And I blocked him. Just stop it. And there were sort of little skirmishes, and then he threatened. January 2022, he wrote to my lawyers and said, "Are you still representing her? Because I'm planning to sue her again." And my lawyer said, "Yeah, fine, whatever." And then a week later, he said, "Oh no, she's learned her lesson. I'm not going to sue her now." It's just non-stop sort of trying to exercise control. And this is the thing. He says, "Oh, she's out of control. Her Twitter feed is out of control." Like, I have to answer to him.
Just out of curiosity, because
well, you better go.
You're obviously no. I mean, I can sit through however long you need to get through your story. My question is that you're obviously talking pretty candidly about him. So has all litigation been resolved?
Yeah.
And so if you agreed not to talk about each other,
we haven't. So yeah, the latest lawsuit he offered a few weeks ago, when it became clear that the police weren't going to do anything, he offered to drop hands and settle and walk away. I really wasn't keen to do this because I just think he's just never going to stop suing me. And at some point it needs to stop. But the problem is, Josh, he doesn't have any money at all. He owes the Daily Mail £29,500 in unpaid court fees. He owes the Family Education Trust about £16,000 in unpaid court fees. A couple of other individuals he owes outstanding sums of money to. And it's like, and the other thing was the case wouldn't come to court until January 2025. And, on the one hand, I want it to be thrashed out in court. I think it should be thrashed out in court about whether or not this sexual offence can be talked about, as I said, because I think it's public interest. But on the other hand, I've got all these children. Two of my youngest children, I'm really candid about. They both have diagnoses of autism, and they are both in really heartbreaking situations, actually, in terms of their education and what's going on. And I just don't need the hassle of litigation with him. I mean, he might say, "Well, you've been talking about me a lot tonight," whatever. But generally, I think he's suing Graham Linehan again. And I think Graham Linehan is probably in a much more robust situation. He's got more mainstream cred than me. He gets in the papers. He's more willing and able, I think, to take the battle on. Because basically, if I hadn't settled with him, so he just wanted to drop hands and walk away, and then he asked for a confidentiality clause, and I said no. I'm not having any more of this. I'm not going to talk about you bullshit, excuse me, swearing, nonsense, because whenever Hayden is not a person that you can enter into a legal contract with, because he will always break it and gaslight you. He'll always try and use that as a weapon against you. If you agree to do anything, he's not a safe person to be in a contract with. So if I had said, right, okay, have a confidentiality clause, he would have tried to find some way of saying I'd broken it. So I said to my lawyers, if this is a deal breaker, so be it. If he doesn't want to settle without a confidentiality clause, I'm not going to settle. And we said, no, we're not going to do it, a confidentiality clause. So we just settled. He's dropped hands and walked away. And the part of the reason why I've agreed this is because I think Graham Linehan will probably fight it. He'll bring more attention to it. Secondly, my focus is on Surrey Police, so I'm suing Surrey Police for what they did, and I want to sue one of their officers as well. So how many court battles do I actually want? And I think my energy is better taken up fighting Surrey Police and stopping this from happening to other women, rather than just, a constant sort of dung flinging argument with somebody who is a lunatic. And it doesn't matter with Hayden, it doesn't matter. Even if I'd won, and I think, my lawyer said I had a good chance of winning, and I was pretty confident of winning, he'd always find some way of spinning it to say that he'd won. And, the job of a lawyer is actually to try and keep you out of court where possible. So it was with a very heavy heart that I said, okay, settle and walk away. But I think if he sues me for a fourth time, I'm absolutely not going to walk away. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I believe that the situation is so outrageous. It is like Jonathan Yaniv. You've got this unhinged, in my opinion, I think he's unhinged, this unhinged person going around chucking lawsuits at women, trying to cover up all his misdeeds. And he'd be better putting up his hand and admitting and being candid and being honest, actually, to have a healthy respect for somebody who does that. But you've got someone who is really unhinged, who's using the court fee system. I think it is a matter of public interest. So and what happened to me was so wrong. So I'm talking about this. Yes, okay, it involves Hayden. It can't not. But this is just actually, I've been through a really playing victim, but it's true. I've been through a really traumatic 4 years, and I should be able to share my story and say what happened, and actually how the transgender movement, if Hayden hadn't been transgender, this wouldn't have happened, and how he was able to sort of leverage his transgender status with the police. And also, I think he's totemic, really. Here is they say it never happens, but here is a man with all this criminal background, trying to say, well, it's completely fine for me to say I'm a woman and have access to young people, Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I got you. One of the things that you brought up that I kind of want to circle back to is that you mentioned your real issue is with the police, the Surrey police, who I think are the famous police. I think that anytime you see news from the UK about some dystopian nightmare police action, it's almost always from Surrey. I could be wrong, but that seems to be my impression.
No, I think West Yorkshire probably.
Okay, West Yorkshire is worse. Okay. Well, one of the things that you sent me beforehand is that you sent me a copy of. You mentioned that he tried to get an injunction against you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You glossed over, I think, if this is the right one, the details of the injunction. So, if you would like, I would like to read them real quick.
No! This is another one. That was the police injunction.
Oh, really?
That was yeah. So after it got dropped in 2022, he then started talking about me again, non-stop. He was really cross because I'd been on the news. Graham Linehan had written a book. Graham Linehan was beginning to write his book, and he was being in the news about how he'd been cancelled, and he mentioned Stephanie Hayden. And I went on GB News and said, yeah, I was targeted by Stephanie Hayden too. And that then sent Hayden off into another spiral. He complained about Ofcom, who's the Broadcast Regulation Authority. He complained about GB News. He then kept trying to get me deplatformed from GB News. He then started talking about me non-stop. And then I responded, and me responding to him was then what prompted him to go to the police and then to arrest me. And then
what did you say to him on Twitter?
So basically, he was saying what a terrible person I am,
Mm-hmm.
and how I should be deplatformed, and I shouldn't be married to a priest, and I bring shame on everybody, etc.
Okay.
And I just said, well, actually, that's a bit rich coming from you because you're a sex offender.
Okay.
Um,
Which is
and then
a factual statement. He was convicted for a sex offense.
yeah.
Okay.
So then he and then he did things like he kept talking about me, claiming I was a stalker. And he always, whenever he's talking about me, he tags in this one woman, and they have these very open conversations about me. And he was clearly talking about me, about being a Surrey stalker and religious, blah, and he was in the same city that my daughter is in, for university. And in the middle of a conversation about me, he published a picture of my daughter's university.
Mm.
And I was, it was a clear reference. We know where your daughter is. My daughter's studying to be a doctor of medicine. So a few weeks later, he published something about her medical school. Now, he never publishes stuff about medical schools. And him and this woman have this conversation about how they knew that my daughter was going there, because I'd said it. I actually hadn't. I'd been really, really careful not to say it. And they'd kept having all these conversations about, there was a woman down the road from me who was murdered, and they made a joke out of that. And they kept having, for a few years, all this banter about coming to my house again, eating lunch at the pub down the road from me, etc., coming to Surrey stalker. At one point, Hayden was on an aeroplane, and he was flying over my house, and he published a picture of the map, I think, saying that he was over my house, or he talked about flying over my house. And he was
just to pause real quick. It would be safe to assume that what he's doing is operating 2 Twitter accounts so that he can talk about certain things with himself and make it public, or
no, this other person is a real person.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she is. She's
She just hates you because you're turf or whatever.
Yeah, no, a long story. She's hated me since before he came on the scene, because she didn't like her. This is where I differ with Kiwifarms, actually. You have this thread on, I hate to use the word, tarred babies.
It's true. It's true.
Awful.
That is probably the worst
Terrible
thread title in the entire site. Is like tarred baby general. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
It's horrible. You complete reprobates. I strongly disapprove of your, and I have to say, I'll be honest, I thought, I actually have a lot of sympathy with Holly Dance. I heard your Matty about her, and I didn't agree. You got some stuff wrong. Anyway,
I did. I got a couple things wrong with that.
But I have a lot of sympathy with these cases and these people. In short, I think as a relative, you're the one with skin in the game. So if you decide that your child is better off with the machine turned off, you're the mum, you're the dad, you've got skin in the game, you've got to live with that. That's probably the right thing to do. But in some of these cases, there is sometimes a bit of hope.
So is she just like an anti-natalist, anti-keeping disabled children alive?
I don't know. She's just like really, really liberal.
Okay.
And I think she had a long-standing. I don't know. Literally, I really don't know, Josh. Right? I was defending this case, this Alfie Evans case, and suddenly this woman just popped up out of nowhere, and she was like, 7 days ago, I hadn't heard of Caroline Farrow, but now I really hate her. I think she's such a, bitch, and I think, and she was just really like spewing venom, and I was really taken aback because this was just like a complete stranger.
Yeah.
I'd never done anything to this woman, and she joined forces with the guy that was writing the Tombstone Teeth blog. They'd known each other for sort of 20 years, and apparently it was the two of them. And then when Hayden and Harrop started, they sort of hitched their wagon to there, and now Hayden and her have become like really, really good friends. And she's just sort of it's funny, actually, she turned up to one of my court cases, and she claimed that I'd violently assaulted her. And it was really funny. So I didn't violently assault her at all, but she had got hold of, I don't quite know how this happened, but there was an intimate photograph of me. I say intimate, it wasn't full on porn, but it was a photograph that my husband took of me when I was asleep, and you can probably see the top of my bottom. That's it. And my husband, around the time that this blog was going off, my husband thought that his machine had been hacked, because he suddenly, things started going a bit weird, and he thought nothing of it. And then this woman started going on about this photograph of me that, and how it had been sent to her, and she claimed that my friend had sent it to her. And my friend's like, I don't know about a photo. I don't know. Anyway, she somehow ended up in possession of this photo, and she kept talking about it, and then it appeared on Kiwifarms, and I said to her, you say that you were sent it. Well, who sent it to you, and how did they know your phone number? And she just literally, she said, I can't say the word. She said, you're a CUNT. She said, and you're going to prison. So, and she was literally like, you're going to prison. And my husband sort of came along and said, can you just leave my wife alone, please? Just go, and Hayden was there. I was like, oh, Father Farrow, come along, and sort of ushered this woman away. The next thing we know, we get a letter going, violent assault outside the RC. And, they wrote to the judge, and they said that I had viciously assaulted this woman, and they drew cartoons of me assaulting her. And then, and it was quite disturbing. And she said, we've got the CCTV, and the police looked at the CCTV, because obviously if I'd assaulted somebody out, it was serious business. She was one of his witnesses. And the police looked at the CCTV and said, yeah, nothing happened. There's no crime here. How is that
not perjury? Because I mean, if they're drawing cartoons that directly illustrate like a physical contact that did not exist, and they can, conclusively prove that that did not happen, how does that not result in any kind of punitive action?
Well, quite. I think we would have had to, apply to the court and say, they've written this letter and it's perjury. But the thing is, the lawyer said, look, the judges are just used to this nonsense. The best thing to do is just to treat it with the contempt it deserves. And the thing is as well, because Hayden acts, as you would say, pro se, as a litigant in person, he comes in, and litigants in person are always treated as a little bit special by the judge. They know.
Yeah, they do that in the U.S. too. There's a specific ruling where a judge is forced to treat arguments from pro se litigants with a benefit of a doubt, which is not bestowed upon regular filings. Where if a pro se says something that sounds kind of like case law the judge knows about, they're by law required to interpret that favorably.
Yes,
and it's just like, it's nonsense. Especially if that person does have like a master's in law, like they know better.
Yeah. So, they always get given a bit of leeway. And it was really funny, actually. The first time I was in court with him, a lawyer friend of ours rang us up that night, and they said, oh, he's a litigant in person. They said, did he bring the peanut gallery with him? And I was like, yes, how did you know? And she said, it always happens, Caroline. They always turn up with their sort of gallery of hangers-on and nutters.
Yeah, because it's like, this is their entertainment for them. This is something that I had with someone who was suing me, is that this person was active on the forum and actively discussing their litigation against me on my website, while claiming that my website was causing them to fear for their life. Which is just on its face absurd, but it's a very expensive thing to defend. And my lawyer at some point said, I think we should ban her, because I think that this is just like, she doesn't care about winning or losing. She just enjoys the commotion and the discussion. She enjoys the theory of litigation and talking about that with people who are interested. And it's like, if you cut off that source of entertainment for them, they lose interest.
No, exactly. So, I mean, when all this went through, my lawyer was just like, look, the judges are used to all this. It's just nonsense, and actually, what was really funny was that they wrote to the judge and said, oh, can you get the Metropolitan Police involved? Actually, that, you know, they went to the Metropolitan Police themselves. You know, it was all kind of theatre and drama and performance. And even in our most recent lawsuit, you know, it was really funny. He was saying, oh, she violently assaulted her, you know, and we were saying, but, and he produced the emails as proof, and we're like, well, hang on, these emails show that I didn't. You know, it really is surreal gaslighting. So so where was it? Yeah, and so 2022.
You're talking about something flying over your house.
Yeah, so he continued to talk about me in 2022, making reference about coming to my house, calling my house, you know, all these names. Fair enough, he's got a point. You saw the video, but he was like non-stop talking about my house, my family, my, you know, blah blah blah, and you know, so I just gave it back. I just thought, I've absolutely had enough of this. You know, you're actually now trying to deplatform me from GB News, and you're trying to whatever. I'm sorry. Just stop it. And him sort of doing that about my daughter in university was absolutely the last straw. So then in May, the police ring me up and say, oh, you've been misgendering him and you've been referring to him as Uncle Tony. Do you think you could not do that? And I said, well, do you think you could do some work, please? Go away. And they said, no, we haven't done anything. There's no further investigation. We're just telling you. And I was like, okay, fine, but this is crazy, you know, you should do some work. And then, so I thought it had all gone away. Then he continues to talk about the fact that he's suing me throughout sort of May and July, and I have no inkling of this. I've got no lawsuit. And he appears, what's really funny is he appears on GB News and everyone makes fun of him because he, you know, presents a bit of I don't know if you can find the clip, but he basically looks pregnant. He has this big fat stomach. I think you guys call it's known as a gunt round your way.
Yes, that's the term. That's the official term for
it. So he's got this big fat gunt, and he looks pregnant, and this goes viral, him on GB News, and he's actually saying, I admit that I'm not a woman. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you're constantly suing me saying that you are and that I'm offending your dignity as a woman. What's going on here? You know? And he says, oh, you'd think someone who's being sued for misuse of privacy would know better. And I'm like, really? Am I being sued? I didn't know that. We go on holiday. The day we come back from holiday, a lawsuit, and again, this was really crap. My husband was going through a cancer scare. He'd had like a colonoscopy. You know, my daughter got kicked out of school because she's too autistic to cope. And I don't mean that pejoratively. She has autism. She can't cope in a mainstream busy school environment. And we were having a really rubbish time. We go on holiday. The day we get back from holiday, the lawsuit arrives on our. In fact, it was the day we get back from holiday, my husband has to go off for a colonoscopy. The day after, it's like he realizes we're home. The lawsuit lands on my doorstep. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, this is just crazy. Will this guy never leave us alone? So in my rage, my Chantal rage stream, I know I probably am deservedly a lol cow because I don't learn either. In my rage, I take a picture of the lawsuit because I feel like I have to prove it. So I take a picture of the lawsuit and I put it on my Twitter feed, and I'm just to show it's happening. And literally, the postman gives me the lawsuit in my hand as I am walking out the house. So I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, take a picture, and I take my daughter to the dentist. I get to the dentist and I get all these messages. Caroline, you've posted that on Twitter and it's got his address and it's got your address. You've doxed the pair of you, you stupid idiot. So I immediately...
That's also absurd because in the US, if you file a lawsuit and your address is on it, it was a big deal where the US federal government had put into a filing all sorts of confidential stuff, and then they panicked and said, we did that on accident, we need that taken down from public record. And the judge is like, are you stupid? No, you can't do that. You can't you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't undo the damage. That was there's so many little things where you're like, oh, well, of course. And then I did that. And that was also a big deal. It's like, that would never be an issue in the US.
And it's like a public, well, it shouldn't be, because it's a public document in the UK. And funnily enough, I don't know who it is, but there's someone off the farms who has been archiving all his tweets. And I saw an archive of one of his tweets where he's saying, oh, yeah, these, he himself has admitted that a lawsuit is a public document, and that actually, publishing a public, it's not doxing, but, Hayden's truth is what he wants it to be at the time. So he then goes to the police and says, she's posted my address and she's called me a sex offender. And now look, all these people are talking about my address on Kiwifarms. Oh, this is all her fault. And so they then use that as grounds to arrest me. But funnily enough, he had already been doxed on Kiwifarms the year before. And like Keffels, why was he doxed? Because he posted a picture of his, where he lives, his flat, his apartment. And, you know what the farmers are like. They work out where the curtains have been bought, or, wherever. And they located it pretty quickly. So he didn't tell the police that, A, he's already been doxed on the farms by somebody else anyway, or that I'd removed it 20 minutes later. So he just says, she's doxed me, she's posted my address and said that I'm a sex offender. So the police are like, can't have this. And then he also used these memes on Kiwifarms, which we'll go into, to say, that I've been posting malicious communications and grossly offensive material. And so the police sort of hung the arrest off the back of that. And then 6 months later, so I go public about the fact that I've been arrested, but I'm very careful not to mention Hayden, and but he identifies himself, and he gives an interview to Pink News and Vice News, telling them all the information. It was like, great, you've identified yourself, you've actually endangered the case now, because how can a jury give a fair trial because they've already seen what you've got to say. And then he goes back to the police. He just, at this point, he goes a bit manic and he starts pulling everything off Kiwifarms, stuff I've said, stuff other people have said. He pulls a post I've made on Getter, which has nothing to do with him. He just gets everything and flings it at me. And the police go, oh, this is really terrible. And they apply for this stalking protection order, which is what you're about to read.
Okay, I was going to ask, can I read this? So this is 2019. This is... read the official title. In the Guildford Magistrates Court, in the matter of Stalking Protection Act 2019, in an application for a stalking protection order between the Chief Constable of Surrey Police and Caroline Farrow, a hearsay notice, but then I'll skip down to the juicy part. This is 73 pages, which I assume they expected you to read in its entirety. Part 4, proposed prohibitions and requirements. The applicant proposes the following prohibitions. 1, contacting Stephanie Hayden directly or indirectly by any means, or incite another person to do so. This includes but is not limited to contact in person, calls, letters, emails, messages, social media. Pretty standard for a stalking order. Pretty fair. Engaging in any form of surveillance of Stephanie Hayden or inciting a person to do so. Number 3, researching Stephanie Hayden or inciting another person to do so, which includes storing online or any information about Stephanie Hayden. Number 4, which is a bit unfair if that person's suing you, that you can't do personal research in regards to them. But I guess on their face, they assume that this is like a random stalking thing between two private people. Number 4, attending any place you believe Stephanie Hayden is present or remaining in that place once you are aware of their presence. Number 5, possessing, owning, or using more than one mobile... Oh, this is where it starts getting crazy. Possessing, owning, or using more than one mobile phone and one SIM card, unless with written permission from your offender manager in that area you reside. You must provide your telephone number and unique identifying numbers of all devices within 3 days of this order being granted, or within 3 days of any supplying any changes within 3 days of such change. That's how they wrote that. Number 6, making reference to Stephanie Hayden, either directly or indirectly, on social media or in any publication. Number 7, having or using any social media which has an asterisk next to it. Social networking, gaming, or dating website, unless... So in general, not just in association with Stephanie Hayden, any having or using any social media, social networking, gaming, or dating website, unless with written permission of your police offender manager and having supplied username and emails associated with each site within 3 days of your order being granted. And then it defines what a social media website is, which includes any website or software programs used for social networking, or the dedicated websites and applications to interact with other users. So every single website that she uses, which exists for the purpose of being able to contact other people, she must identify herself to the police and provide the usernames and emails associated with each. And she cannot create any new accounts on those platforms while this is in effect. Number 8, accessing or using any social media or chat site or chat application, including but not limited to Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, or Instagram. I assume that might also extend to the Kiwifarms, but it's not mentioned explicitly alongside those others. Unless approved in writing by your offender manager and you have provided the username, linked email address, and passwords to your offender manager within 3 days of this order being granted, or within 3 days of supplying any changes within 3 days of such change. So you can't have any social media. And if you do have any, you must also provide the passwords so the police can log into your account and make sure that you're not using these accounts against their interests. Number 9, having a personal email or social networking account, including accounts set up for the purpose of engaging in online chats with others without supplying your offender manager a username within 3 days of this order being granted, or within 3 days of supplying any changes. Which means you can't, so you have to give them all your email addresses. It seems redundant. I'm not sure what the difference is between this and number 7. Except that they explicitly includes personal email addresses. Number 10, making any vexatious complaints, allegations, publications, or threats against Stephanie Hayden. Number 11, using any device or computer capable of accessing the internet unless you have notified the police managing offender or officer of the possession, acquisition of such a device prior to its use, and 2, you have been installed with monitoring. It has been installed with monitoring software that is approved and monitored by the police force in the area in which you reside, unless such software is unavailable. And this is confirmed by writing in the police managing officer responsible for monitoring. And point 3, it has the capacity to retain and display the history of internet use, which includes but is not limited to internet messaging applications. And that you do not delete any history or engage in any function such as private or incognito mode browsing, which restricts the ability to retain any display such history. 4, you are able to make the computer device immediately available on request for inspection, which will include the review of any communications data by a police officer or member of the police managing team, which shall include removal of the device in order to facilitate the inspection. The above prohibition shall not apply to a fixed desktop computer at your place of work, job center, plus public library, educational establishment, and other places. So not only do you have to give them access to literally everything, every kind of online account that you have, the final point, number 11, says that you cannot access the internet. Now, I have to make a pedantic note that the internet is not specified. They could be talking about the global internet, which is a proper noun with a capital I, but this internet has a lowercase I, so it could be any internet in existence. But I'll assume that it applies to all internets, unless you have given them access, you let them backdoor it, and you don't use incognito mode, because that would not record history. So they want to be able to see literally everything that you do all the time. And you have to be able to surrender every device that you have that can connect to the internet at any time upon request. So let's say that they withdrew. Spoiler alert: they withdrew this complaint because she went public with it, and it caused articles and shamed the Surrey police enough that they actually withdrew the complaint. However, I'm curious: what is the maximum penalty if they were to, seize your device and realize, oh my God, she's open incognito mode? What is the penalty for that? Do they hang you by your thumbs out the Tower of London?
I think I'd get a few years in prison.
Really? Because this is because it's a
yeah.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy. And, you know, I mean, they didn't withdraw it. It's really funny. Well, not fun. I can laugh now. So I was telling you this week about this woman. You've got more sympathy than I have. She's definitely a lolcow, called Fiona Ryan. And she has been arrested and she's being investigated by the police under anti-terrorism laws. But then she's singing songs about how all Jewish people are Nazis, and how she's wearing her anti-Semite badge with pride. And it's quite funny, some of the stuff she's coming out with. You know, I'm not really a TikTok user, but she's people are getting really offended by her. But I think she's funny because she's just her output makes me laugh, because it's just so lacking in any kind of self-awareness or knowledge or anyway. But she got arrested, and she was obviously known to the police because they searched her fridge and found Class A drugs. And I think she was growing, she's alleged to have been growing cannabis plants, and she had the whole, you know, heat set up. So she was arrested for terrorism charges for singing all this, for this anti-Semitic content that she was posting. And she was saying, oh yeah, I love Hamas. Hamas are really proud of them. They're doing a great job, etc. And you know, they got her on drugs charges, and she was let out on bail. And her, you know, what she was arrested for was far more serious than what I was alleged to have done. And yet her restrictions weren't a patch on what they were trying to do to me. And my lawyer said, you know, he's quite seasoned, and he said, you know, I've been in practice, you know, 25 years, Caroline. He said, and I've dealt with paedophiles, and I've dealt with, you know, an awful lot. And he said, and I always say to people, doesn't matter what you've done, just tell me what you've done and we'll try and sort it out, whichever way. And so he said, so, you know, I've heard all sorts. And he said, I've not ever been so shocked or angry before. He said, because, you know, I've dealt with all these hardened criminals. And he said, and you're just like a completely law-abiding, you know, vicar's wife who has never, you know, fallen foul of the criminal law in your life. And it's true, before all this transgender nonsense, you know, I've never had any, I've never been arrested or needed to be spoken to by the police. Probably like most people, I've, you know, no shoplifting as I was a youth, no drunk driving, nothing. I've had a completely clear and unblemished criminal record. And suddenly, within the space of a few years, because society has changed so much, and, you know, saying a man is not a woman is hateful, I've got this whole heap of sort of nonsense at my door. Sorry, I can't even remember what point I was making. No, so my lawyer was just like, yeah, you know, this is crazy. This is the stuff that they would apply to paedophiles and terrorists. He said, I wouldn't be surprised to see this if you were some terrorist that was being released on license from prison, or a paedophile released on license from prison. And so the police really wanted to go ahead with this. You know, they were really well up for it. And the reason it didn't go ahead was not because it went public, but because the day I was supposed to go to court, we got there nice and early, and the court clerk told us that there were 42 people being held in the cells who needed to be dealt with before my case, because this was a civil case being applied for by the police to protect Stephanie Hayden during the course of the investigation. And these stalking protection orders are applied in cases where it's like complex domestic violence or something, and they need to put something in place to protect the victim while they're sort of evidence gathering. And interestingly, yet again, Stephanie Hayden, when they were first introduced in 2017, posted that they were really terrible and that they presumed people were guilty, and, you know, anybody could accuse anybody of anything and get a stalking order, which is what he then went on to do. And during the time that the court was busy and dealing with these 42 people in the cells who'd probably also been misgendering, we said to the police barrister, you need to look at our submissions. You need to look at what we have to say. You need to look at our kind of counter allegations. And the police were like, oh, there's always counter allegations. Yeah, whatever. And we're like, no, you really do need to look at this. And because I had tweeted about what was happening, the police were even keener to go ahead with it, to shut me up and to say, oh, she's broken bail by even talking about the fact that you want to silence her. So the police barrister, and this is the value of an independent bar, he wasn't, although the police is his client, he has a duty to the court. He opened up our submissions, looked at page 1 and went a bit pale. And then he read through and he was like, okay, I need time to go back to my client and get some advice, because the police officer who was responsible for my arrest and who'd been pushing this all through, she was off on leave. It was a stand-in, and he saw what we were saying, which was basically, A, I've not been stalking him, and B, actually, you've just been given a one-sided account. Here's the sorts of things that he said about Caroline. He's, over the years, he's threatened to come to her house with golf clubs, and we got some of these golfing tweets that he'd made about jokes about playing golf near Surrey. And we got a whole load of stuff that he'd said. And we said, look, this is not her stalking him at all. And one of the things that they had said in their submissions was, on my hard drive they had found 36 screenshots of me having saved his tweets, and they said I had no business having those screenshots, and it showed that I was obsessed and fixated. He'd said things like I'd managed to access his bank account details, and that had stemmed from the fact that a court order had been posted on Kiwifarms, and it had listed which banks because he owed money, he'd been questioned in court, and he had to list where he had the contents of his bank accounts, to his creditors. So he claimed that I had done that. I hadn't. But even if I had, he said the fact that she has paid £11.50 to obtain a court order shows that she's obsessed and fixated with my private affairs. It's like, well, A, I didn't pay £11.50 to get your court order. But even if I had, that doesn't show, as you said, that I'm fixated or stalking. You're suing me for the third time. You owe money left, right, and centre. Actually, yes, it's completely legitimate to have this information. It's not stalking because it helps me, because I'm in litigation with you. But and it was, my lawyer said this, the police absolutely gaslighted. So on one occasion, he had tweeted about the fact that he had gone to Guildford Police Station, which is my local police station. He'd gone there to report me for something else, and he'd eaten lunch at a restaurant that I take my children to quite regularly on a Sunday. It's one of these, all-you-can-eat buffet Sunday lunch places. And instead of eating lunch in Guildford, he'd gone to the nearest restaurant that I take my family to and posted that he was eating lunch there, which then just got me, oh my goodness, he's stalking, he's tweeting, he's really trying to spook me out by posting about eating lunch in my local restaurant I take my kids to. And the police had put, oh, poor Stephanie Hayden can't, it's evident she's stalking him because she got upset when he ate in her local restaurant. Just, sorry, are you still there, Josh?
Like that? What is your, because it's just bizarre that you see the police in the UK and you might assume, based on what you hear about the British police, that they might be like entirely foreign, or like there's something off about them in terms of like how they look. But no, they always look like regular British people who have just completely lost the plot. Like they've received a remote firmware update from the Queen, or I guess now the King, and now they've just completely lost the ability to think or feel like a normal person. What is wrong with them?
I think a lot of them are very young. There's been a couple of things happen. So successive governments have cut the numbers of police, so there aren't enough of them. They are, instead of recruiting people with a bit of common sense, they've gone for this whole diversity and inclusion agenda. You know, and a lot of the really experienced people, you know, you get, if you watch any British TV programs about policing in the 70s or 80s, you know, they're all sort of hardened common sense men who just wouldn't entertain any of this nonsense. Sadly, these are all very young graduates who've got a bit of a power complex, and they've also been on Stonewall, who are the leading LGBT lobby group in the UK, or certainly were, have managed to achieve institutional capture, which means they've managed to go into all our publicly run institutions and train them. So all the police forces have done this sort of Stonewall diversity training, which basically tells them that, you know, the LGBT community are the most oppressed community ever, and you know, we really need to do better and be better and support them. And so basically they elevate the LGBT community above all others, and if an LGBT person says that they're a victim or something, they are automatically believed and prioritized. And so I think the police genuinely, and this particular police officer who arrested me and who has been dealing with my case and was responsible for this attempted, you know, stalking order, I think she, you know, was like a member of the Borg. You know, I think they are genuinely horrified by me. They think I'm a terrible transphobe and that I've got awful views, and it's just shocking and dreadful. I mean, you'll play it, but, you know, I showed you the audio and the video of when I was arrested, and I said to them, this is disproportionate. And this big burly 6-foot bloke's going, no, it's not. No, it's not. And I think
so is the arrest, was this in association with the stalking claim?
No, this was before. So this was the first arrest. This is the first one.
Okay, so for the audio, I have an audio file that you asked me to get, and I also have the video file that's kind of like cut apart. And I'm curious which one's which, because you asked me to remove the video from one of them after like 3 minutes, because yeah, that you're inside the house is shown. Which one?
So they're both the same occasion. So
okay.
That was both the same occasion. I haven't got a video of the second time they arrested me because I was on my own. And so what happened was, I mean, this policewoman is awful. I can't, you know, fine. She'll probably do me for harassment for saying she's awful, but she was. An example of what she was like was when she dropped me back home after my first arrest. She said, well, you haven't been charged yet. And I said, well, I don't hold out much hope, given that Kate Scottow was charged for calling him a pig in a wig. And she said, see, you've got it all up in your head. You're obsessed.
Okay, wait, hold up. Okay, are you from Leeds?
No, I'm from London.
Are you living in Leeds, though?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, because someone in chat said that where okay. Is Leeds in Surrey?
No.
Okay, my bad.
Right.
Someone
okay.
said that you were from Leeds, and I was confused. And while you were talking about this awful policewoman, I looked up the one that arrested the autistic teenager that said she looked like her lesbian nana.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this the same person? And I saw that they're also from Leeds, and I thought, oh, there's a good chance, there's a non-zero chance that this person's not from Leeds. But I guess I don't know my UK geography at all.
No. So Leeds is like up to the north, whereas I'm in sort of just southwest of London. And at Leeds they have, I won't even try.
Oh, Leeds is in West Yorkshire, which you mentioned is worse than Surrey.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm configuring this information in my head. Okay, what would you like me to play?
Whatever you like.
Well, okay.
Whatever's funniest. I mean, I can laugh now. I probably won't laugh when I'm arrested tomorrow.
Is this is the IMG 2533? Is that the first thing that happened, or this is 40 minutes? Oh no, it's not. That's my bad. That's the extraction being wrong.
I can't even see what you're playing.
Yeah, I know. Give me a second. I'm thinking about how to do this. I guess I'll play the video because the video is pretty compelling to see the people in the doorway. I will give you a link to the stream, which is usually pretty accurate. And this will be about 30 seconds behind, I want to say. I'll do a quick test to see how far behind it is. I'll throw the video
don't
up.
worry.
Well, I just want you to be able to see what all's going on.
I'm sorry I've talked for so long.
No problem. How did I lose this?
But, you know, the point here really is just to share what happened and talk about how ludicrous it is. It's not to harass anybody. It's not to alarm anybody or distress or defame anybody. But I actually think what happened is an outrage and is very telling. And, you know, I'm at the point I can laugh about it. I won't be if I get another lawsuit, but hey.
Yeah. Okay. So, remind me, what is the context for this? This is the video that, the video.
So the context is literally them coming to my house on Monday, the 3rd of October, and telling me they were arresting me. No, last year, the first time I was arrested.
Okay. And you're being arrested for?
Malicious communications and harassment.
Towards Hayden?
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened with this?
Sorry, are you playing it or
not yet? I just want to know what's the outcome of this.
So this was all part of it, right? So I was arrested. They just came to my door one Monday afternoon and arrested me completely out of the blue for malicious communications and harassment for a course of conduct between February 22 and July 22. And as I said to them, you're arrested. It's October, and yet why do you have to come to my house and arrest me? Why couldn't you have rung me up or whatever? And they're like, well, we have to seize all your devices. So they literally just came to my door and arrested me. And then I was under investigation for malicious communications and harassment. And then during the period they were investigating, Hayden went back to the police and put in another 5 complaints. So they then arrested me for a second time in April 2023 to talk about what else he was accusing me of. And the reason that they arrested me a second time was, it was awful. It was my birthday and the police rang.
I mean, this is crazy that the police can arrest you without having a case.
And he says, we've got to arrest you to get proof, to get evidence.
No wonder why we started shooting at you. What the hell? Now everything about the U.S. legal system makes so much more sense to me, because it's like at some point it broke and people were like, we got to get the fuck away from the British. Because it's crazy because once they make an arrest, they either have to get charges immediately or they have to let you go. And then I think I'm not entirely sure, but it's like they don't make an arrest like just to talk to you. That's not how it works. Okay, I'll just play it. So this is them. They are arresting you so that they can talk to you under caution, which is them letting you know that they're actively trying to screw you over. So be careful what you say, because they're out to get you at that point. And that I think when they say under caution, that also means that you have the right to ask for a solicitor.
Yeah.
If you ask for a solicitor, does that end the conversation or
no?
So, because this is also different. If you once you're under caution, you ask for a solicitor or a barrister or whatever, they can still talk to you, but your advisor is there to warn you about answering certain questions or not to answer certain questions or something.
Yeah, so that's so basically they arrest you and they read you your rights and they say you have the right to remain silent, but anything you do say may be taken down and used in evidence against you. And if you seek to rely on something that you haven't said, so the best thing to do is...
It's like, yeah, that's right. It's like the opposite, because they're telling you have the right to remain silent, but be careful. If you don't tell us
there's anything that you later rely on in evidence.
Because it's like if you don't tell them something, then that denies you the right to bring it up later. You can't construct a defense off of things you didn't tell the police, so you have to tell the police things. even up front, even if they don't have information to charge you with. That's why they put you under arrest. It's literally the exact opposite of the United States. It's very bizarre.
So this was the first time they arrested me, and then the second time they came was he'd put in another 5 complaints, and she told me this on the phone that they wanted to talk to me about, and again, this was all off my Twitter feed, and that he was blocked from, and he'd got stuff off Getter. And do you remember that Ruben Remus? Oh my goodness, yeah, maybe that'll come in later. That featured into it as well. So there was this Ruben Remus account that came onto Kiwifarms and was just like non-stop obsessing. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just play this. I want to, because I want to show the arrest.
Sure,
I guess.
Sure.
So again, this is like, I think 4 minutes, and then afterwards it's all audio. I've normalized the audio, so you should be able to hear things a little bit better.
I'm gonna cringe.
Yeah, if you, I mean, you can listen to the stream. I'll just kind of remain silent throughout it. And if you want to pause at any point, just let me know. The Kick link that I gave you is about 5 to 10 seconds behind. So just keep that in mind. I'll play that now.
Social media towards a person called
I don't want you in my house. Please get rid of my dog.
You're under arrest, okay, for me to investigate that matter further by way of a taped interview. Okay, so you're under arrest for the offence of malicious communications and harassment during the dates I've explained, due to the allegation I've explained. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court, and anything you do say may be given in evidence. The reason for your arrest, okay, is for a prompt and effective investigation and for us to obtain forensic digital evidence relating to the offences.
Do you have a warrant to
come in the
house?
one.
So you've been arrested, okay?
Robin, are you filming this?
I am filming this, yes.
Because my understanding is they cannot come in my house
under section
without
32
a warrant.
of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act.
Okay, so what am I supposed to have done? I haven't contacted.
No,
Stephanie Hayden is suing me, and today I have put in my sister's
Basically, an allegation of me that you are harassing her because the stuff that has been posting online, okay, is an allegation, and we need to investigate that. In order to do that, you're being arrested so we can interview you in a police case recorded interview on a case in order to do that. And also, as part of it, because it's been online, articles have been used on like sort of electronic devices, and we're going to be needing to seize electronic devices in order to prove the offences.
Well, I'm
okay?
afraid my electronic devices are in the church, so you'll need a warrant to come into the church to get.
Well, that's
my
fine, because we can get a
devices.
Section 18 paperwork. But anything that's inside the house at the moment, we have the power, because under Section 32 to come in.
So you're going to take my work computer?
Whatever computers belong to you. Okay.
Well, I've only got my work computer.
Mobile phones, so mobile phones, computers.
I'm afraid that's all. It's in the church office, so you'll need a warrant.
So any paper, so that's fine. But again, we will need access to them. Okay.
Fine, that's fine.
But like I say, you are under arrest. Okay.
I
We do have the power.
Could you tell me what I'm supposed to have done?
You've already been
so
told.
far.
No,
I
but
just
this
told
is
you.
outrageous, right?
Okay.
I have 5 kids, right?
Okay.
My daughter in there has profound autism. She doesn't have a school place, right?
Okay.
Okay, I have my children coming home from school, and you are basically trying to arrest me.
You are under arrest.
Okay,
You are under arrest. We're not trying to. You are under arrest now. The words have been said.
So what's going to happen is
this is outrageous, darling. Okay, can I just tell you? I've got the chicken in the oven. I put the chicken in at 4:30. The chicken should be ready at about 6. So you'll need to do like the potatoes and the vegetables. I can't believe. I mean, he is outrageous and out of control.
It is, nonetheless.
we've received an allegation and we have to act on it.
Yeah, but why couldn't
Well,
you
that's
just...
not actually true, because you've
This
had
is
about 400 allegations,
This,
Stephanie
and
Hayden.
this is
You've never
completely
investigated before.
disproportionate. You're
to this
coming around
point.
my house in September,
It's not
in
disproportionate.
October, to arrest me for something I've said between February and July.
Yeah.
Stephanie Hayden, be aware, has done things like, has doxed my
At the
daughter.
end of the day, remember
has
everything that you're saying is obviously being recorded.
Yeah,
And
I
it is
understand.
And I
under
would urge
caution,
you
okay?
to say it when you get interviewed after you've spoken to
But
your
do you
solicitor.
not think that this is a really...
Love,
okay, so
can
my
I
solicitors-
suggest we get you solicitor?
Yeah. Can you phone up?
I don't
well,
know your
Tom,
solicitors.
tried to ring them today because my
So you can
strikeout...
either organise your own solicitor, or you can have one. Obviously, where you're under arrest, you can have free and independent legal advice, which
No,
is
I'd like my
a
own
duty
solicitor.
solicitor,
I
which
mean,
is
do you not
provided.
can I just
I'm
ask
not
you a
going to give you
question?
my
Do
opinion
you
on
not feel that
anything.
this is a
No,
complete
because
disproportionate
no,
waste
not
of
at all.
time?
We have a
I
job to
think you're
investigate
I
offences,
know.
don't
I
we?
just think
And
this is
is what's
outrageous.
happened.
Okay.
I think it's outrageous that you're coming round to... do put this on social media. I think this is outrageous that you're coming round to my house. You're coming out to my house. I've got 5 kids. Well, 4. One's at university. I've got a severely autistic child. I'm trying to get dinner ready, and you're coming round to... could you not ring me up?
No. couldn't have rung you up
Well,
because I need to search
okay,
your
so-
property.
We need to search the property for electronic devices which may be used in the commission of the offences, and that is
Okay,
partly
well,
one
the
of the
only
reasons.
one that you can't go in the church office because you don't have
So
a warrant
basically,
for the church
what
office.
do you have in here which is your electronic devices?
The only thing I have is.
I am going
Your
to come in,
computer.
Caroline, because I'm allowed to.
Okay, because you are under arrest, and we have to
So
make
this is my work Chromebook.
That's fine.
So you're taking my work Chromebook.
Well, any electronic devices which are linked to you, I'd suggest just closing everything down.
When am I going to? My work will be very cross about this because this is what I used to do my work on.
Just basically just shut it down. That's fine.
That's all I have really. I just work on my Chromebook.
Is there a monitor for the computer?
Well, this is just.
Oh wait, sorry, a computer tower, a tower even.
No,
It's just a laptop.
Chromebook.
Okay, so just your laptop which runs with everything. Okay, is it password protected?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we will need the password because obviously we need to potentially do downloads or everything in order to do that.
I need legal advice
Okay.
because I don't know if I can give you the
That's
password.
fine.
It's fine. No worries.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
So what about mobile phones then, personal mobile phones?
I do have a mobile
That
phone.
we will need as well.
It's in the church office. You need a warrant for that. I'm not
Okay,
letting you into
that's
the church
fine.
office. You don't
Just
have
to
a
let you know,
warrant.
obviously, if we go there and anything's been moved or anything like that, you know, that could be an offence of and
That's
stuff like that.
absolutely fine.
So,
And you're gonna
as a
nick my
case
husband's
of
computers or?
only computers and electronic devices which are linked
And
to
how long?
you.
Can I ask how long are you going to hold me in custody for?
So we can hold you in custody for up to 24 hours.
That's marvellous,
But
isn't
we
it?
plan to do. We want to. Listen.
While I'm
let
in
me-
custody,
let
why
me
not
finish.
hold me in a police cell?
Would you like to-
You go back in the office, please, Teddy. Teddy, go back in the office now. Because the police are here. Go back in the office now. Get back in the office now.
My girls, these policemen are arresting me.
Okay.
This
So,
is-
any other electronic devices which are linked to you within this building?
No.
Okay. Is the church actually attached to the house, or is it a separate building altogether?
It's the
I
church.
mean, I know it's actually built into the side of the church.
The
basically.
house attaches to the church, but it's a separate property, separate bills,
Okay.
electricity. This is my home.
Okay.
That's the
That's
business.
fine. Okay.
So you need a warrant to go into my business, into my husband's church to get my
Well,
phone.
not a warrant. We need a Section 18
Okay, so you have to-
PACE.
Paperwork. So we
So
can
you
come
need
back
to
and
go
do
to
that.
Well, we can get. We can
No,
put it in the
Section
inspector and
8.
get it now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We can get that done now.
Yeah, we can do a 18.5.
Yeah.
Lovely. Do you know where my phone is in the office?
I have no idea.
It's over that. If you want to tell us where it is, we can get it all now, and then that way,
I'm
if
not
anything,
sure.
it makes life easy,
It's
doesn't
in
it?
that-
And then
You
obviously,
know where it is, don't you?
and then that way, it then actually causes less distress for everyone, because otherwise we'll then.
Yeah. Do you know?
Because if
I
you
can
know where
have
it
a look.
is-
I don't know. I can have a look.
Can you see if you can get it for me?
Because basically, what I'm concerned about, if you don't mind, sir, listening to us, I would like to come with you into the church and be able to watch. No, listen to me, because I'd like to actually watch it and actually physically watch it. Because I'll be honest,
I
don't-
understand that,
I'm
but since
concerned
my
that
wife doesn't,
people, I'm listening. I'm concerned that it could be altered and potential evidence could be deleted. Okay.
I completely
Which
understand
would be
that, but I'm
offensive.
afraid we have very little trust in the police,
That's fair enough.
who have not investigated all the allegations,
fair
the
enough.
physical threats of
Okay.
violence against my wife by the
Okay.
person you're now coming to investigate. So we,
fine.
I'm afraid, have very little trust in
Well, that's fine then.
police.
Okay. What I suggest then is obviously not going in there until we've got paperwork. Then until we can do that, because obviously I'm concerned that potential evidence could be lost.
We'll get an
Okay.
18.5
And
and
if that does
in there
happen,
in a minute.
you know, it is potentially an offence of assisting an offender, and you may, whoever may be arrested for it, and then obviously, you know, prison offences and so forth. You know, that could happen. Okay.
But it only happens if
I'm
I do
just saying-
something illegal, which I have no intention of doing.
And that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm just sort of slightly concerned about, obviously, and that's why, obviously, continuity and evidence and stuff like that, in order to prevent that. That's why I'd like to have come with you in order to do
Can I
that.
just say, Stephanie Hayden is a man. Can you put that down in evidence against
Right,
me?
lovely. Can you just stop it,
Stephanie
please? You're not
Hayden
helping
is a
yourself.
man.
So
Stephanie Hayden is a man. Let's be very clear about this. Seeing
lovely.
as they're
Don't, since
taking
you're
our
under
stuff.
caution, don't
I
talk
know,
without
I'm
your.
just so
I know you
annoyed.
are, but talk
He's
with
been
your.
so
Can you
abusive.
please talk with your
I'll
solicitor
step
about
outside, because
this?
unfortunately there's lots of shouting going on, and I can't hear properly.
I just can't believe that you know you're coming round. Do you know? I mean, he has done stuff like he has doxed my daughter's university.
I'll
He's
remind
been
you
in-
again that
I
the
don't
best
care.
time to talk about this is when you get
Well,
interviewed
yeah,
after
I
No,
you've
but
got
lovely.
legal
Can you?
advice.
This is good advice. Pleased to put you under caution. So let's talk. We'll get your solicitor
He'll be
involved.
so happy, won't he? I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do my job. Can you do a few things for me? Can you try and contact work to tell work that my work computer has been seized?
Well, I don't know how to do that. I've got no contact with your work, have I?
I know. I don't know what.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't know what to do.
Well, no, I don't know what to do either, obviously.
But, I'm going to lose my job now because I've taken my workbook.
Well, you'll get it back.
Yeah, but when? Not for months. I just find this utter.
But I'm not allowed to go and look. They want to look, so, you know.
We could have done it two ways. We could either have gone in there with you, but obviously you say you don't trust the police, fair enough. Or we'll just get what's called a pace.
And then you'll come with me anyway, so, you know.
But they might come and seize your computer and everything, and Teddy's computer. That's the problem. We've got a daughter who's
but we only want to take what we
They want to take your devices. That's all they want to take. They want to take your phone and they want to take your
Am I allowed
your
to
computer.
go and do a wee before I'm arrested?
You're under arrest now, but before we leave, yeah, you can.
Okay, when can I go and do a wee?
In a minute, when Lee comes back in.
Do you need to come with me to go to the loo?
I don't need to come in the loo with you, but obviously now you're under arrest, we've got a duty of care towards you.
Yes.
The same as everyone else that we arrest.
I
It's absolutely laughable.
Okay, yeah, then I will follow you around the house because you're under arrest.
God, what are you like? Just, we are just living in a utopia. Wow.
It's not a utopia, is it? But dystopian,
I'm a bit
maybe.
worried about what happens when Felicity and Imogen come home and see these rozzers here. I'm also, gosh, I'm not going to get my work done.
I'm just going to get a pen and pencil so I can write down them your solicitors because I need to contact them for you, presumably. Oh dear. Not enough going on trying to sort out school places.
He's been involved in a website
There's like so much hate against you.
death threats.
Caroline, I've just told you to sell this after. I can only remind you.
There's no point talking to this police officer because they're not actually doing anything other than arresting you. Can you give me the name of your solicitor, please?
Tom Ellis.
Okay, pen doesn't work.
I've got one.
That's all right. I'll get another one.
But my solicitor's in Liverpool, for goodness
Okay,
sake.
but then they'll need to find a representative.
So, Tom Ennis, love.
Tom Ellis and Sam Driver. Or should I? Oh, I suppose Adrian can't really help me either, can he?
And their law firm.
AI Law.
That's fine. I'll
But they're in
let them know
Liverpool.
now. Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Can you also see if you can get hold of Louise Moody and tell her?
Yeah.
All right, that's the end of it. So I will unmute her because she's been listening with a phone, so she can hear it the entire time. Hello.
Hello. Sorry about the playback loop.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that if that happened to me, I would be dead. They would have to call in the armed police because I would lose my mind. I would become belligerent and unreasonable. There's just something like police suck. Like in the U.S., police suck. Everyone knows that they suck. Police know that they suck. The police wives actually know that they suck too. Police have the highest rate of divorce in the country and infidelity in the country because even their wives know that they suck. But I mean, I have never, thankfully in the U.S., the police are just, when they talk, they sound stupid. In the UK, they sound stupid, but they also have a very pompous British accent, which kind of drives a bloodlust in a reasonable person's mind when they hear it. Just. Especially the round boy with his
Oh goodness!
very,
I
don't know. He has a character to him, and I know that to you guys he's just like a bloke in the country, right? But to me, it's like he's typecasted as like the idiot in like a movie that has British people in it.
Well, the thing is, you should play the other clip actually of what he said to me when we were driving off. But listening to that actually, I was a bit embarrassed because I could also hear I sounded really whingy, and I don't normally sound whingy, but yeah.
I mean, it's exasperating to be told that you're under arrest for allegations, and also they're going to completely ransack your house and all of your computers, and then also your office, because apparently your house is attached to your parish.
Yeah.
And they're going to ransack your parish's office too.
And what I didn't share with you, so well, a couple of things was, firstly, I still haven't got my work computer and other I've had one. They seized a bunch of devices. I've only had one back.
Really?
Yeah. And this police
after
woman,
a year.
Yeah. This police woman. This is how appalling. You know, I think she had it in for me, right? So eventually they sent it all. So the second time, well, no, I'll just talk about this first. But recently, I've heard back from the Crown Prosecution Service. So in order to be charged, something has to pass two limbs. There's two limbs of a test. One is the evidential limb, and the second limb is it in the public interest? My case didn't even pass the evidential limb. So despite all of that and ransacking of all my devices, they have the Crown Prosecution Service, who are the people who decide whether or not you're going to be charged with something, decided that no, there wasn't enough evidence. They didn't even get, because sometimes if there is enough evidence, they'll then think, well, is this really in the public interest? But it didn't even get past that evidential stage. So I should have had my devices back. And when this woman emailed me to tell me, or emailed my solicitor to tell me that they weren't charging, and, you know, I'll have to make arrangements to get my devices back. So this was well over a month ago. I think this was sort of mid-October. And she still, you know, she said, yes, you can have them back, but I need to arrange for them to be brought from the store and you can pick them up at the police station. So we made a date for that to happen. And then that morning, we heard nothing from her. And it's like, oh, sorry, I was off sick. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you were. So then my husband had to go. I mean, there's no way I ever want to see her again. So I sent my poor husband to go and do it. And he then went to pick up the devices, and he only got one, because she said the others were being held off-site in another part of Surrey, and the place they were being held off-site would contact us, and we haven't had any contact from them at all. So out of all the devices they seized, we've only had one back. And what they did was, I didn't show you the next part of the video, when they went into the office and the children were in there. In fact, I had a bit of a shock, because my two eldest children suddenly sort of appeared like they'd apparated. I was like, where did you come from? They said, oh, we saw the police cars. we saw the police, so we came in round the back. And so my children were in the office, and they were playing on their devices. Fortunately, one of them was playing on their Switch, and they were like, is that mummy's? You know, has mummy got access to that? You know, and
is your mum bing wahooing and playing Mario Kart?
No, Mario Kart. You know. And they, you know, fortunately, obviously my husband was there, because we were worried they were going to seize all the parish stuff as well. But they saw my kids with devices, and my kids are pretty guileless and they don't lie. So they said, oh, does mummy have access to that? And they said, yes, because I do, because they're children and they're not allowed unsupervised internet access. So yeah, they took all the kids' devices and put them. Sorry, I was trying to look at chat, and the sound came out. So yeah, you haven't gotten
the Nintendo Switch back?
No, they didn't take the Nintendo Switch, fortunately. But they took all the iPads.
That's crazy. That's bizarre. They're gonna find, between episodes of Bluey, they're gonna find the smoking gun that they've been harassing whoever.
And my daughter did have to persuade them not to take her Switch, and that the only thing mummy ever does on the Switch is put in the password to increase her screen time. You know, she was getting quite upset, so they didn't take the Switch, fortunately. But they took all the kids' iPads as well. We haven't got loads of iPads, but my daughter had one for her school. You know, she wasn't in school, so she had it for her schoolwork. And also she has this addiction to Harry Potter. It's like a calming mechanism. So whenever she's feeling dysregulated, she listens to I'm really bored of it now. But she listens to Harry Potter on Audible, so that helps her sort of regulate and calm down. So they took that, and they took an actual iPad, and they took like Amazon Fires, and the kids, crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
And what was really what I couldn't quite get over. So all of that, and
it's just nonsense, because it's like it's a Kindle. Like, okay, it's gonna be kids books, Harry Potter, little classic English story tales. Are they trying to find Mein Kampf? They would have found it by now,
And what they were, it was really, see, I thought this was really bizarre, because I know before people get called in for interview over Twitter. So I thought, why are they arresting me? And you heard me giving it out to them when I was arrested. Oh my goodness, you should have heard me in the car. I really gave it some, as in I was just so angry, and I was saying to them, when you go home tonight, what are you going to tell your wives? What are you going to tell your partners? Oh yeah, I arrested this really dodgy Catholic woman, who's been saying things on the internet. I said, is this really what you joined the police force to do? To be arresting Catholic women, or arresting mothers at tea time because they've upset somebody on the internet? I mean, this is crazy. And then, they take you to the police station, and you go into the criminal entrance, and they put you in this sort of holding thing, and they try and find out if you're on any medication, and they sort of try and calm you down before putting you in a cell. And I was still, I wasn't like being abusive, but I was, being a bit gobby or mouthy. Just, this is just so outrageous. And as they were booking me into the custody suite, the sergeant said, he looked a bit surprised, because I didn't sort of look the sort to be, and he said, what's she here for? What's this about? And they said, oh, it's malicious communications. And he said, oh, Mrs. Farrow, he said, sending people abusive emails is a crime, And they said, oh no, Sarge, she's not sent people abusive emails, she's written offensive post on the internet. And I was like, can you hear yourselves? And I said, I did say, can you actually hear yourselves? And there they are, taking all my jewelry off me, and they're making me lift my legs up so they can check my socks for drugs. I said, this is surreal. 1 minute I'm cooking the chicken, and the next minute you're checking my socks for drugs because somebody's offended on the internet. And I said, everything I write in my own name, so I don't see the need to seize all my devices. And they said, oh, well, that's the thing, you see. That's what we need to talk to you about. And in fact, in an interview, it transpired there was a poster on Kiwifarms called Kit Kat, who posted lots of photoshopped memes of Stephanie Hayden. And he had, one of the memes was deemed grossly offensive because it was Hayden in a gas chamber, and someone's pressing a button saying tranny gas. Anyway, they showed me this cartoon, and they said, now what do you think of this? Literally, they said, what do you think of this? And I said, well, it's not really my taste. And they said, why not? I said, it's not really my sense of humor.
Why don't you find this gas chamber meme funny, huh, lady?
And I just said, well, no, I said, it's it does make me recoil a bit. And they said, who are these people? And I said, well, that's clearly Stephanie Hayden in the gas chamber. And they said, now who's this person pressing the button? And genuinely, I said, I think that's Adrian Harrop. I said, I can't really tell. I think that's Adrian Harrop pressing the button, isn't it? And they said, no, it's Graham Linehan. I said, oh, really?
Oh, no.
I didn't realise. I said, oh, okay. And they said, who's Graham Linehan? It's like, well, okay, you just told me it's Graham Linehan, and now you're saying, who is he?
Yeah.
And then they showed me this picture of
what's funny about that is that if you take a class on how to be a police officer and how to do an interrogation, you would not ask questions like that. Like there's like an artistry to it, to get someone comfortable and to reveal information, to show what they have, and to feel like you're on their side.
I think they did a bit of that. They said, oh, tell us about when Hayden came to your house. And I said, well, actually, it was horrible. And I actually rang you because I just thought it was such an invasion of my privacy. And
we sat down for tea and crisps.
Crisps. We had a cucumber scones and jam. So we had a cream tea and Earl Grey. And then she showed me this picture of the Queen and her corgis, which had Hayden's face photoshopped on it. That was pretty funny. And I had to really try hard not to laugh because I know that goes against you. But it was literally. Have you seen The Life of Brian?
No, I have not.
Oh, so the Monty Python film Life of Brian. Oh, you need to see it, Josh. It's hysterical. You've got this senator saying called Biggest Dickus, and you've got and you've got this Roman lead. What do you call a normal person in the rank and file Roman soldier?
I think it's just a legionnaire, right? Is that right?
Yeah. So you've got this sort of legionnaire, and they're going, "Do you think the name Biggest Dickus is funny? What's so funny about Biggest Dickus?"
You can't see it without laughing, first of all.
And you can see this legionnaire like really sitting, trying not to burst out laughing, and his lips wobbling, and they're deliberately, "Well, my friend is Biggest Dickus, and his wife is called Incontinentia Buttock," and then this person just explodes with laughter. But it was like that, they were showing me this picture of Hayden. It was very well done. It was the Queen, and Hayden's face had been photoshopped on the Queen. And I was just trying, that was my Life of Brian moment. I was trying so hard not to laugh because it was hilarious. And then they showed me posts written by Real Mother Foya, who, Hayden has been obsessed with finding out who this person is, saying, "Well, what's this all about then?" I said, "I don't know. I didn't write it. You'll have to find the person that did." And they were saying, but what's this about then? And then they showed this. They were saying, "Can you explain this?" So, and it looked like he'd been quoting Mumsnet. And I said, "So look, it looks like he's done a screenshot of Mumsnet, doesn't it?" And they said, "Who are these people on Mumsnet? This person, Bernard Black's wine ice lolly. Is that you?" It's just like, It was surreal. Are you this person? Are you that person? And the reason that they thought that I was Kit Kat was because in a statement, because I saw this in the stalking protection order, Hayden had said that I regularly post photoshopped pictures of him onto my Twitter feed. Of course, he hadn't provided any evidence, had he? He's got all my other Twitter feed, but not that. So that was basically the reason why they arrested me, was because of the memes. Because when there was this big outcry and everyone was tagging in Surrey Police and saying, "What are you up to? What are you playing at?" And they said, "Well, this woman was arrested on, when grossly offensive material is said to have been posted, we have to investigate." So it basically was, I think, that gas chamber meme. They decided, Hayden managed to persuade them that there was a very strong suspicion it could be me, and that was what nudged it into arrest territory.
It's the whole thing's crazy. I feel kind of bad because we're 3.5 hours in. It's past midnight in the so it's even past midnight for you, so I feel kind of bad, but I feel like we haven't even touched half of it because I all the Adrian Yallop stuff.
Adrian Harrop. There's two Adrians. There's Adrian Harrop and Adrian Yalland. No, and I mean,
merge them in my brain into one.
They're all don't. Adrian Yalland will be very upset to be compared.
My bad.
I mean, it's insane. And then in a nutshell, they then came again 6 months later, and they arrested me. I was in the shower this time. And they had rung me up on my birthday and said that they wanted, which was nice, said that they needed to talk to me under caution again. And my solicitors had written to them and said, "This woman is pretty vulnerable, actually. She's been the victim of stalking. She's really traumatized. We want to know what measures you're going to put in place to protect her, actually. And she can't even do this time that you want her to go to, because I had to take my daughter to an autistic support group that she attends, which, it's not like a social thing. This is part of her education provision." Mm-hmm. So I told them I couldn't make it. I dropped her off, came back home. I was in the shower, and there's literally 4 of them trying to take the door off the hinges. So I came back down and I was in a towel, and I said, I was quite cross with them. And they said, we'll give you 15 minutes to get dressed. So I got dressed. I did say on Twitter, oh my goodness, I'm in a trowel, and they're arresting me. So they then came and arrested me again and put me in custody again for another 7 or 8 hours before asking me facile questions.
It's crazy.
And one of the questions they asked me was, what's a troon and what's a tranny?
It really sounds like the cops, they do have it out for you, because they somehow have talked to Stephanie Hayden. I thought, oh my God, this poor woman.
Yeah. Well, I've been told. So they told me, right, when they said that, so this article was published in Redux, detailing his convictions. And because I was on bail and I couldn't talk about him, I said everyone should be reading and supporting Redux, which didn't mention him. It had nothing to do with him. And they immediately emailed my solicitor and said, well, this isn't a breach of bail per se, but, tell her to mind how she goes, It was like, and we came back very short shrift saying, well, look, my client often talks about other news outlets which have mentioned Stephanie Hayden. So what are you saying here? And actually, why are you monitoring her Twitter feed and telling her what she can and can't say? She's not in breach of bail. And they went away. And when they told me that I wasn't going to be charged, the police officer said that the CPS had said that if I ever mentioned Stephanie Hayden's name again, I could be charged for harassment. So my solicitor said, that doesn't sound right, and asked the police officer, could you give me the exact wording of what the CPS said? And the CPS had given the standard warning that, we're not charging, there's no evidence, but if fresh evidence ever comes to light, then we might reconsider the decision. It's a standard thing that they say to everybody, we haven't found the evidence, but that doesn't mean that if in the future it's just a standard, it's not saying, we're definitely going to come up, I suppose it's if compelling evidence turned up. So she translated the standard wording that CPS gives to everybody, if further evidence comes to light in the future.
Well, she's just threatening you because she knows that it's traumatizing for a normal person to be like abducted out of their home by the state. And it's just like, it's time consuming. It fucks up your whole day. It ruins your schedule. You have a bunch going on. It like throws you off. You still haven't gotten your computers back. So she's just like threatening you implicitly. I would have filed a complaint against her.
Well, we're considering what we're going to do next. I mean, probably I should imagine because of this stream, Hayden will go back to the police and play it and say she's harassing me. But I'm not harassing because my aim is not to cause alarm and distress. Hayden is blocked from my Twitter feed. So, I'm sure he'll claim someone sent it to him, but he doesn't have to sit and listen through 3.5 hours of this.
I don't know how they can say, don't read this person's Twitter feed. Like that's, literally, it feels like everything's the opposite in the UK. In the US, it's, if you make it public, you make it public. Everybody can look at it. That's the whole point of like a social media feeds. How can they say don't read this person's tweets? It's like, if you feel so threatened by the repercussions of people reading your tweets, the obvious answer to that is to stop tweeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it kind of goes the other way slightly in that, Hayden says my tweets cause him alarm and distress, and the Kiwifarms causes him alarm and distress. Well, if something's really triggering you and causing you alarm and distress, just don't look at it. And the aim of this, I'll finish by being really clear. I know that the Kiwifarms is very much, we exist to laugh at people, not to, you have a saying, don't touch the poo. So I'm just talking about this because I think it's worth talking about, and it helps. I want to get my story out there, and I think, I'm not going to be silenced, and I want to talk about it. It's cathartic. I'm not talking about this to cause anybody alarm and distress. I'm not talking about it. I don't want anyone to start tweeting him. I don't want anyone to send him anything to his address or, this is not, please don't, basically I'm saying, please don't do anything that could give Stephanie Hayden a reason to say, she's harassing me by proxy. She's speaking to these Kiwi farmers. She knows what they're like. Oh, I've had death threats. I've had this, that, and the other, and it's all her fault. Actually, anybody making death threats or rape threats even, or whatever threats they make, or arson threats allegedly, that's the fault of that person making threats. You know, if you're so out of control and unhinged that you have to threaten people because of their words, that's your problem, not the fault of the person telling their story. So I'm not doing this. My intention in doing this is just to kind of share my story, because I think the police are out of control. I think the legal system's out of control, and I think society has fallen to the menace of gender ideology. So, you know, no,
I mean,
that's my caveat, really.
It's crazy to me. It just feels like, I don't know, you have found somebody who is like above average intelligence, but who is also like a predator, who enjoys exerting control and influence over people, and who has realized that the enforcers of law in the United Kingdom are below average intelligence and easily manipulated. And despite that, they can just ruin your day over and over again through any complaint.
And bear in mind, Hayden has a lot of extensive experience with the police, both in terms of his own criminal record and making complaints against others. So he himself, I mean, he has been arrested for harassment. The case fell apart in court. It's funny because I said to the police, look, you know, Stephanie Hayden knows how to word a complaint just so. He's got enough knowledge to make him very dangerous. So he knows how to word a complaint. He knows which words to say to trigger things. So, for example, there's a stalking checklist of behaviours, you know, that sort of a risk assessment. So he managed in his complaint, I think, to trigger all the, you know, to use exactly the right wording to trigger certain action and the right buttons to press. Mm-hmm. And every time he makes a complaint, he gets better at it. So, and I said this to the police, and the police said, oh, he says the same thing. Well, they called him, but he says the same thing about you. But actually he does. He's written so many, he's complained. So I'm the third woman he's had arrested. He had Kate Scott out arrested. He's had Bronwyn Dickinson arrested. He had me arrested. He's had another guy called Darren Duckworth arrested. This year he's had another woman interviewed under caution. He also had a friend of, I mean, Louise Moody, I haven't really talked about her. She's someone that he sued 3 times. He did things like, her wife died very suddenly. She just, you know, awful. She dropped down dead of a blood clot. And Hayden looked up Louise's grant of probate to see how much money she had inherited from her wife, and then began to mock her about the amount of money that she'd inherited from her wife, and the fact that her house, he'd looked up the title deeds of her house, and mocked her because her house was converted. You know, and he's the one claiming stalking. I mean, the whole thing he did with Louise Moody is completely insane. But he reported her to the police. This is his modus operandi. He reports people to the police. It's always a 2-pronged approach. He reports you to the police, and then he sues you at the same time. And I think sometimes he reports you to the police because he likes the power and control, but he's also hoping that the police can get the evidence he can use in a civil case. And of course, after I got arrested, he sued an organisation called the Family Education Trust because they tweeted how horrified they were at what happened to me and how terrible they thought it was that someone can take advantage of the legal system like this. So he immediately sued them for defamation, even though, you know, that he was blocked from their Twitter accounts, and he lost. You know, the judge said his case was completely hopeless. But this is what he tries. He, you know, not only does he sue you, but he tries to sue anybody else who supports you or says anything in support of you. It's this 2-pronged approach. And then, in this case, that's why I brought up the Family Education Trust. In his Family Education Trust case, he made great story of the fact, well, Caroline Farrow, she's been arrested twice, and she's been investigated for stalking, you know, and all this is all still ongoing. So he uses it to sort of very
familiar tactic. A very familiar tactic. It's it's just like it's such not, especially in the UK, that should mean nothing. Like, you got arrested, that's because someone made an allegation, apparently.
Well, one thing though, Josh, you know, one of my lawyers said to me, he's an ex-copper, and he said, you don't realise, he said I stopped being a copper because he said I realised that I wasn't becoming a very nice person.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, the police forget that actually being arrested is very traumatic. It's very traumatic and very, you know, and for them, they arrest people every single day. You know, it's part and parcel of their job, and they're completely inured to it, and they have no clue, you know. And so, yes, I found the whole thing really traumatic, but I don't think that they necessarily realised how traumatic it was. Or maybe they did. Maybe I'm being too charitable.
I mean, that's a hard one. Like, you can't know into the hearts of men, like, what their issue is. I mean, with the guy and that the lady seemed a little bit spiteful and cruel. I don't know. Let's say that maybe she's somebody, doesn't have her own kids. She's somebody with 5 kids, you know, and gets a little bit angry at that. That's a possible inciting factor. But the guy that arrested you, he's just dumb. I can tell that guy has like an 80 IQ. Very.
Sure.
And he just like, you know, someone from upper said, "Oh, we got to investigate this harassment claim. This poor trans woman is being bullied on the internet into suicide." And he's like, "Oh, mate, I'll put a right stop to that."
And it was so funny when I said it's disproportionate. He said it's not disproportionate. And then in the video where they're driving me away, I said, you know, can you tell them that they've stolen my stuff? And he was like, it's not stolen, it's seized.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Whatever.
I'm laughing now. Don't.
Everyone's making fun of my British accent. My issue is that I lived in Australia, so whenever I try to talk British, I immediately want to shift into Australian because it sounds more natural to me. Okay, well, it has been great talking to you. I do have to jump off. I feel like I've only gotten through half of what I know of your timeline. So if you do want to talk again, let me know. I'd be happy to finish the story.
Yeah. Okay.
Assuming that you're not in jail.
Yeah, can we not? Don't. I mean, literally, I am.
Knock on wood. Hold up. I need to find some wood. There we go.
Don't. But no, it's been great, and no, thank you everyone for your support and everything. I've really appreciated it.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay, take care.
Yep, take it easy.
See you guys. Bye. Bye.
Okay, I'm going to exit that. All right, thank you guys for watching. I don't usually read super chats for these. I guess I could. I did notice that Twinkle Tard sent in $100, which I obviously really appreciate. You know what? Actually, I can bash these out really quickly. So I'm just gonna flip this over into green mode. I know that there is a big Jimothy Medicare stream coming up for everybody, so I will try to keep this extremely quick. Pass through it so people don't feel ripped off or whatever. And then I'll call it a day. And I'll see you guys on Friday because I'm not streaming on Tuesday. Holy Halford says, in the long-awaited convo, hope you're having a good day, Josh. You are my nibba. I am having a great day. Thank you very much. Sneedo for one says, Sneed. Thank you, Sneedo. I appreciate it. Anime Extremist for 3 says, thank you, Caroline, for the work that you do. And thank you for sticking up for Josh, the Kiwifarmers. I agree. Josh keeps up a good, healthy culture on the website. So big ups to both of you. I do try my best. And it is really rewarding to see that there are real people out there who have like lives and families and want to associate with the forum. It's not just weirdos. It's like actual people who benefit from the freedom of information. Hyper Ninja for 31 says, happy early birthday, Josh. Have the most excellent stream. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Anime Extremist for 2 says, so far the stream just started, mind you. I have 2.5 questions for Caroline. What's her favorite anime and why? And who's her favorite VTuber and why? I don't know about anime, but I'm pretty sure her favorite VTuber is some guy named Pippa. If I remember that, I don't remember what she was saying about Pippa, but I think I heard that come up. Casting Couch Crab for 10 says, the crabs shall stand with Caroline. I'm sure she appreciates that. She has many enemies. ZBD for 1 says, Caroline, what's your favorite type of cheese? I will ask her that really quick, actually. What's your favorite type of cheese? I guess I didn't mean to kick her off so quickly. I'll let you know. Twinkle Tart for $100 says, hello, Miss Farrow. Keep fighting the good fight. And aside, do you have any lady friends that'd be interested in dating our boy Jerish? To be honest, he needs a proper English woman to straighten his ass out. She does have a friend who I know is single that was dating Styx Hexenhammer, and she does not have a lot of good things to say about him. So, thank you very much. She says brie, by the way. The cheese of the day is brie. That should be my. Is that going to be like my question for everybody? Is like, what's your favorite cheese? I'll just harass people with cheese questions. That's a much more wholesome parallel to the food question that Ricada asked people. Umpty Madu for one says, fun fact, it's actually possible in the UK for information that is both true and the public interest to be defamatory. The sun cannot be set on the British Empire. The sun cannot set on the British Empire soon enough. That's crazy to me. That's like hardcore anti-American to have true things be defamatory. Cino for one says, Pippa Pipkin, Troon confirmed, get fucked, Sweaty Squad base. Prez Bay for 20 says, the nice change of pace having somebody comparatively normal appear on Maddie. Nice stream. This is the first woman I've interviewed who is not fucking crazy. It's, I think. Apologies if I've interviewed a normal woman before. Thank you. Supreme Me for 5 says, which is more realistic, a passing trans woman or a Holocaust actually happening? Can you please run a poll? I need answers. Given the context of the stream, I will not answer that question. Sneedo for 1 says, fuck 12. Fuck the cops. I don't know what 12 means, but thank you. Anime Extremist for 2 says, if you're a police officer, you're a piece of shit among the lowest form of scum. Pigs in a blanket aren't fit to wipe your shoes on. Absolute trash. Fuck cops and fuck their friends and family. Base, to be honest. Anime Extremist for 1 says, all cops are guilty. Eat cops off a trebuchet into the sun. Tank Theta for 1 says, UK and Aussie police are fucking servile public servitors, lobotomized. Fuck them. Yeah, I agree. Fuck cops. I've been anti-cop before it was cool, just so everybody knows. Anime Extremist for 1 says, unironically, I'm glad Derek Chauvin's in prison. He was never a victim. Look up his time as a police officer before George Floyd. I've heard that he was overzealous and pulled his gun out numerous times. I will say this. I actually do believe that, I don't know if he was murder, like a murder charge, but I do believe that Derek Chauvin held some guilt, because there was a time where even his other police officers were like, he's not responsive. Maybe we should check his pulse. He's like, no, I will kneel on him and I will not get up. And that to me is a little like, if that was me, I would be like, can you check my pulse, please? Eshanessa for 40 says, many happy returns for Tuesday. I will not be on Tuesday. I apologize. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Genocide Show for 5 says, great interview stream, was very interesting. Sucks that they screwed up access to the site during it. Use Tor, and you can use Tor over ClearNet. I will fix that when I get a second. And then on Odyssey, Forsaken Wanderer says, I hate the Antichrist. Based and true, me too. And Neighbor for 5 says, most esteemed and venerable Kiwi demo. So far, this is not as funny as their previous interview, but much more informative. Well, that's all we can hope for these days. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll see you next time. Friday would be the next normal stream. Take it easy. I don't have an outro song. Bye-bye.